this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino? Blimey.
Right? Yeah, a rhino.
Okay.
I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like someone out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because in the 70s I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 6. It is, of course, Thursday. Here we are, the 31st of July, the final day of July. And it started raining, believe it or not. I came in the dark this morning thinking, is it winter already? And it does seem to be a bit darker than usual. And now it's raining here in London. But at least the planes are flying, which they weren't doing yesterday, of course, because there was some kind of horrendous technical error, which meant that all of British airspace at one point was completely and utterly shut down. So if you were at Manchester, if you were in Edinburgh, if you were in Heathrow, if you were in Gatwick, wherever you were, if you were trying to get into Britain, you couldn't. If you're trying, maybe that's the answer. You know, stop migration, just stop all the airplanes. Oh no, they come a different way, don't they? Anyway, so we're going to be talking about that. It's on the front pages this morning. Absolutely ludicrous situation. Michael O'Leary, of course, the boss of Ryanair, is calling for the sacking of the bloke who's in charge of the British air traffic control system. Because you might remember, we've had problems with them in the past. They shut the air traffic control system down last summer, in fact, and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, got stranded around the world. So we're going to talk about that and the matters of rising. Palestine on an awful lot of the front pages, of course, this morning as well. We've got the Times, which is basically saying that Keir Starmer might be actually about to break international law because of his idea of offering a statehood to Palestine. According to some of the top lawyers in the country, his government's pledge to recognise a Palestinian state risks breaking international law. A letter signed by 40 members of the House of Lords says that a Palestinian state would not meet the criteria for recognition as set out under the Montevideo Convention. We had Michael Ellis on yesterday, former Attorney General under Tony Blair, I think it was, or possibly under John Major, I can't remember. And he said basically the same thing, that this does not fit any international requirement for any kind of international legal situation. Shame on you, Starmer, is what it says on the front of the Daily Mail, and that is, of course, victims of Hamas. people talking yesterday, survivors who have been taken hostage and then released, basically saying the Prime Minister's move to recognise a Palestinian state must be condemned. It is absolutely shameful. And, of course, what we do know is that one lot of people who did really like it was Hamas. They came out and thanked the British government for finally recognising their good deeds. Incredible. The other big story, immigration fuels record population growth 2 years in a row. An extra 700,000 people are now living here compared to the last year of the measurement of it. So, as we've been saying all along, obviously, all this migration is shoving up the numbers of people living in this country. Emma Wolf is here. Very good morning to you, Emma. We've got lots of pictures of Ozzy Osbourne's incredible tribute yesterday in Birmingham, where Sharon was obviously in tears, paying tribute to her husband of many, many years. This is Morning Glory. We've got lots more to do. That's just the start, right? Coming up, it's all happening.
We have to return politics to public service. Country first, party second.
Yes, who could forget? Country first, party second. I mean, goodness gracious me. I don't know where to start this morning, Emma, because there's so much going on. We haven't even mentioned the Manchester airport attacks yet.
It took them days to sort out.
Yeah, exactly right. We haven't even mentioned some of the other stories that are doing the rounds, like the striking BMA doctors, which is still going, and also so many migrant stories. A big flashpoint last night in Waterlooville, where an awful lot of people came out in support of each other, basically saying we don't want a particular housing block to have loads and loads of migrants being moved in for free. And
this is still going on, isn't it? I mean, locally, in my area, but also around the country, you're hearing about these small protests planned for this weekend. What is it, Thursday now?
There's going to be loads of them.
Yeah, there are. And the police are sort of, they've taken it off our Facebook page. It's kind of a lot of different things brewing.
Yeah.
But it all comes down, and for me, the thing that you mentioned at the end there is the story of the day. Immigration fueling record population growth. This is massive.
It is massive, yeah.
Mike,
and again, what
we've
been saying this for years and years and years, and people have been going, oh, well, you know, it's just a small increase, there's nothing wrong.
Oh, it's only
really?
a few thousand on boats.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about here. We are talking about the country unable to cope, actually. Unable to take in. It's not what your views on immigration are even. It's simply what we can actually absorb and cater for.
Yeah.
And when you see over 8... So this is 2 years in a row. So the numbers to 2023 and then the numbers to 2024. To 2023, over 820,000 arrivals. And then the numbers 2024, over 700,000.
Yeah. So that's 1.5 million right there, isn't it?
98% of this was due to international migration.
Yeah.
So there's nothing else.
No.
It is international migration that is fueling those numbers. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll get to it, but when you look at the response from Nigel Farage, from Richard Tice, everybody, from Chris Philp for the Tories, talking about the pressures on local services and public services and on housing specifically, but also on healthcare. This is at the root of everything that we talk about.
And everything that we're talking about, and all of these protests, which are about, moving migrants into areas where people don't want them to be, is all about, an overflow problem. It's like when you've got an overflow pipe leaking into the garden, if you keep pouring water in, it's going to keep leaking.
Just can't take any more.
We can't take any more.
There's also the social cohesion aspect where people don't feel, and then this is harder because then you can be accused of being far right, but you just don't feel.
But I'm not interested in whether I'm accused of being far right, because they can stick it right up their jackets.
Absolutely, because they're not living. I mean,
the point is that in this protest in Waterlooville, there are several flats which have been custom built for multiple residency. Right, they would cost £250,000 each, and the idea is that the council is going to move a load of migrants in there, not homeless people, not veterans, but migrants, and the community saying we don't want them.
It's absolutely.
Why should they live there for free?
It's not fair, is it?
No.
And do you remember the Pope last week coming out and reminding us, and King Charles as well, reminding us to welcome people into our communities?
Oh, yeah.
And I know it's an obvious point.
I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, OK, when the Pope, who has an absolutely huge, stunning Vatican entirely gated, and when he opens the gates and welcomes in immigrants into the communities, when King Charles opens up all the palaces and lets immigrants come and just live in his streets, in his local area, in his gardens, in his houses, I think then they can lecture us, because actually at the moment, everyday folk are living with all these thousands, hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
of new arrivals within their communities.
Exactly.
It's affecting their school
And
children.
it's affecting everything. It's affecting, you know...
Local businesses.
As you say, it's affecting local businesses, it's affecting the ability to get a doctor, to get a dentist, all of these things. You know,
Absolutely.
the kids are going to local schools. I mean, we've had stories all week this week. We had the inside the migrant hotel, the Copthorne, in West Sussex, right outside Gatwick Airport, where people are living on this fantastic sort of diet of 3 meals a day. They've got all sorts of designer gear there. They're taking drugs. You know, they're coming and going as they please, whenever they want to. You know, it's an absolute life of Riley. And people are looking at that going, I can't afford to stay in a hotel like that. And if I did stay in a hotel like that, I wouldn't be able to smoke a joint in the bleeding room either. Thanks very much indeed.
It's absolutely unbelievable.
It is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So here's the new, and we had 900 arrivals yesterday, apparently. Channel migrants since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister is now at 47,780, and the migrant numbers for 2025 alone, 25,500. And we're only in we're 6 months into the year.
And we've got the rest of the summer with higher arrivals to go.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to hit that. The 50,000 that you're always talking about, we'll be hitting that very soon.
We will be.
A couple
absolutely.
more fine days. In fact, that'll be in early August.
Yeah, no question at all. Shall we have a look at the Waterlooville protest while we're talking? This has come in from one of our correspondents overnight. This is a local man leading the crowd.
We did not consent to them, and we did not vote for them. This action to house illegals in Waterlooville is about as undemocratic as it gets. We demand the deportation of every illegal migrant. Send them home! Send them home!
See, that is going to be a massive problem for Keir Starmer, because that, as you say, is going to be happening all over the country. In Epping, we've now got the local council asking for a meeting with the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, asking to shut down the Bell Hotel because they think it's not fit for purpose and they don't want the people there anymore. And then, of course, Starmer's got the problem. What does he do with them then? You know, where does he put them?
Exactly.
Because this is going to become...
Can't keep moving them.
You can't just keep moving around
hotels.
in the middle of the night and pretending that you haven't done anything, which is what they kind of, you know... And meanwhile, I think I'm right in saying since last weekend, when I started this show this week on Monday, I said, you know, Starmer's been banging on about Gaza all weekend. He hasn't addressed what's been going on in Epping. He hasn't mentioned the demonstrations which are going on. Huge ones up in Altrincham in Manchester, down in Bournemouth. There's one in Leeds, I think. There's a couple in Birmingham. You know, there's a massive march up in Scotland demanding mass deportations. You know, you can't just continue to bury your head in the sand and pretend that it's not happening, which is what he seems to be doing.
And we hear almost nothing from Yvette Cooper, who is meant to be the Home Secretary, who should be absolutely across this.
Yeah. Her great triumph this week was to introduce a new law for something that's already illegal.
Exactly.
So she goes, oh, well, now if you've got on a small boat and there's more than 80 of you, that's an offence. Well, it's already an offence. So what are you doing?
What on earth are you doing? If you can arrest them for that, you can arrest them for coming over.
Exactly.
Frankly.
Exactly. I mean, I arrest you for getting on a boat, right? And then what? You're going to come to Britain, you'll be illegal, and you'll be here twice illegal, and you can then do anything illegal that you like.
I'm going to arrest you for that stolen car if you go over 60 miles an hour, Mike.
That's it.
You know, don't
Somebody
drive your
said that to me
car.
yesterday before we plank of the week. It's a bit like sort of giving a speeding ticket to the bank robbers as they're running, as they're driving off at high speed for having robbed the bank.
And also, it's not going to stop anyone. I better not go over 80. If I do 79 illegal immigrants coming over, that'll be okay.
I know.
I mean,
and also, these are people
situation
smugglers.
is completely out of control.
They are criminals. They're already criminals. You don't have to tell them that they're going to be criminals, double time criminals. They don't care.
It should be an offence to be launching your dinghy from France.
Exactly.
That's the offence.
Exactly. And also taking money from people in order to deliver them illegally into another country.
Or procuring a dinghy and carrying it through Europe.
Yeah. Absolutely incredible.
What on earth is going on?
So let's move to Heathrow's chaos, because I mean, when this story broke yesterday afternoon, several of us were sort of exchanging messages on WhatsApp, going, you know, this country is absolutely done.
Tell you what, Mike,
it's completely
gave
done.
me happy memories of the last time I tried to take a holiday.
Yes,
first
of
holiday,
course.
my epic trying to take a holiday.
That was the fire, wasn't it?
April or May, and woke up in the morning with a very overexcited 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, love, we're not going because Heathrow's on fire.
Right.
Well, it turns out there was a little substation near Heathrow, you know, that powers the whole of like the busiest European airport.
Yeah.
That was on fire. So So now this.
And now this, and this doesn't. We still don't really know. They call it a technical issue, right?
Technical glitch,
which was
yeah.
something to do with the radar, which sounds quite serious to me. You know, like one thing you need to have working well if you're running an airport is radar.
Is none of this checked? Is none of this fixed and checked and monitored?
Doesn't it have a backup? Don't have a backup system? This is what we said about Heathrow when the fire happened, and of course it turned out that it was Heathrow's decision to shut down, which they didn't have to do. They're claiming that they had to do it because of health and safety.
But also the boss was asleep. I mean, it was in the middle of the night. Why should he be awake?
He slept through it. Yeah, so this is the front page of the Telegraph. Heathrow chaos to bring days of delays because, of course, as you know, it was only knocked out for about an hour, I think, a little bit more than that. But, of course, there's no wiggle room in any way, shape or form because there's so much air traffic in and out of this country. So, basically, they had like dozens and dozens of planes grounded, lots of planes diverted to places like Paris. If you were trying to fly back into Britain, British airspace was shut.
Absolute joke.
Closed. Yeah. And you remember the same happened last year when there was another screw-up and then they took longer to fix it. Yeah, took longer to fix it. Why? Because the engineer who had to fix it was working from home.
Oh, yes.
And he had to take he had to drive a 90-minute journey to get in to fix the problem.
Mike, it's like when when you see someone open up one of those cabinets in the road and you think, my goodness, and there's some guy there with a screwdriver and he's looking at these like thousands of different coloured wires.
Right.
And you think, oh, I didn't realise that the entire street's electricity was powered on that, or whatever it is.
Right.
It's like that. I bet if you opened up a few of the cabinets at Heathrow and actually checked what the technical systems are run on, what the it'd probably be some really dodgy plug with wiring that isn't, hasn't been checked.
It'll be that old, for the want of a shoe.
Yeah,
the horse
exactly.
was lost
I mean, this needs to be looked at properly because is Heathrow or is it not going to be taken seriously? We are I think we are Europe's busiest airports. We're a hub. We go in and out.
Absolutely.
People build connections.
Absolutely. Passengers were left on the tarmac at airports across the UK, including Heathrow, Birmingham, Gatwick, Stansted and Cardiff. Arriving planes were sent to destinations in Europe. That's great, isn't it?
Great.
Coming back into town, your car's at Heathrow, you land in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Right, how are we going to get back there?
Absolutely
and who's going to pay for it? Virgin Atlantic apologised to passengers affected, while British Airways said the problem was affecting the vast majority of our flights. Let's have a look at what Dara Brady had to say. He's the marketing director of Ryanair.
Well, ultimately, if you can't do the job, well, then you move over and let somebody else do it. This isn't the first time that we've had an issue. It's not a once-off. We've had repeated patterns, even going back to the end of May, where we had delays due to short staff.
And this is now down to NATS, the air traffic control company responsible for Britain's skies. According to Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, she said that continued disruption is expected. Check with individual airports for advice. Oh, great. Thanks very much indeed.
Schools broke up a week ago.
Yeah.
People are going on holiday. There are thousands of people now who are going to be affected. The knock-on over the next few days and the weekend.
It will be awful. Well, the Sun's got it on the front. Air we go again. Tech glitch, grounds UK jets, holes ruined for thousands. And that is the thing. If you're on a package holiday, it's not very flexible. No. You can't just say to the
we'll be there
carrier,
2 days later.
We'll be there 2 days later.
But can we stay another 2 days? You don't get your week, do you?
You can't. No.
And I think you're right. This is another kind of let's wake up to broken Britain all over again. Nothing seems to work. Just finished 5 days of rolling strikes by the NHS doctors.
Yeah, right.
And our biggest airport is closed down, basically.
Yeah.
Absolutely pathetic.
Yeah, according to this piece in The Sun here by Thomas Godfrey, the glitch that led to dozens of flights being diverted yesterday is the latest in a string of failures which should beset travellers at Britain's airports. So the most recent one, of course, the fire that you talked about back in March. Before that, another National Air Traffic Services glitch led to disruption for 700,000 passengers in August of 2023. System went down and the engineer who could fix it was working from home.
Yeah, that is...
Cost to the business, 100 million quid.
Well, firstly, why was he working from home? But why is there one engineer who can fix it?
I know.
There should be a team of engineers
some bloke called Bob,
on site, living on site, pretty much, who are able to deal with this stuff, who are aware of it before it happens.
Yeah.
And you know what? This kind of stuff does such damage to our reputation.
It does.
But also you think, well, no, I'll fly via Schiphol. I won't fly via Heathrow.
Right.
Rachel Reeves should be on top of this.
Yeah.
She should be
She's
aware
been very
of
quiet
the
lately,
effect
hasn't she?
Yeah, she has been. She's probably on holiday on a freebie or something.
Yeah, probably. In July 2019, 50 flights were cancelled, dozens delayed for hours at London airports following an issue with radar displays. So this has obviously been going on for a long time. If you're looking at all of this, it goes back 10 years. there's a problem pretty much every year in one way, shape or form.
And it's also incredibly worrying from a safety perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because, OK, at the moment they're shutting things down, which is probably the better alternative. But what happens when radar doesn't work? What happens when there's a glitch and a plane comes in and, you know, collides with another one? And this is really, really alarming.
Yeah, and this
that
affected,
Heathrow is
look at
run
the
so
numbers
badly.
here. Numbers here, 577,000 passengers affected by this yesterday on 3,080 flights. Slowly returned to normal after, but 45 departures were cancelled, 35 arriving flights diverted, hundreds of others delayed. And so if you're flying, I mean, I'd love to hear from anybody who knows anything about what it was like at Heathrow or at Stansted yesterday, because people were just left standing around staring at screens which weren't doing anything. And at the end of the day, their holiday's probably ruined. There's no information.
And by the way, if you want to get a refund from your carrier, good luck with that, because that will take you five months.
Well, it looks like the airlines are saying it's not our fault.
Not our fault, mate.
You know, it was the fault of the air traffic control
even more
system.
fun for passengers trying to get a refund, because then you have to try and get a refund through Heathrow or something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's
exactly. It is absolutely incredible. Joke. Absolutely dreadful. We've got lots more to talk about, of course. 20 minutes past 6. Sharon Osbourne on the front page is looking tragic, really. I felt sorry for Sharon yesterday, because we used to know her quite well when she worked here at talkTV. And he was the love of her life, and pictures of an amazing turnout of people in Birmingham for Ozzy Osbourne's funeral. We'll talk a bit about that as well. It's Amber Wolf, it's me. How about this from Sean in Gloucester? Another day, yet again, Keith Starlin has made me incandescent with rage with his swivel-eyed, treacherous decisions, rewarding terrorists, allowing and encouraging illegal immigrants, targeting farmers, businesses and pensioners, along with labelling us all far right. Labour will be completely finished at the next election, and I hope the country isn't ruined before then. Well, I tell you what, I mean, there's so much unrest at the moment in the country. I don't know where it's all going to go, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere good. 20 past 6.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Apparently we don't meet the criteria because the building's been taken over by another company. The criteria is changed even though it's the same tenants that are living in the building. So I don't understand why it's changed. No explanation of what the change is. So we're just left to ponder and stress about it.
Yeah, and the Housing Association that runs your joint is called Qualitas Housing.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 23 minutes past 6. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10. This is the home of common sense. There's not a lot of it going on. I was just talking yesterday to somebody who, before Heathrow and the whole airport business went wrong, was trying to get a train to Manchester, and apparently there were no trains to Manchester or anywhere on the West Coast line for more or less the entire first part of the day. And they were saying that they might be expected, I don't even know if it did get fixed, but they might be expected to get fixed by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But basically, if you turned up at Euston yesterday morning, you couldn't get a train on the West Coast line going anywhere.
It's absolutely ludicrous. It's the kind of thing that really runs the country down, isn't it?
It does.
When you know that
and there is a
kind
sense,
of basic travel is going to be beset by stress and delays. And you can't just get on a train and travel. You can't just get on reliably. You can't do anything.
You can't, and that really puts pressure on not just the system, but on everybody else. And, you know, we talk about it a lot on this station, that there's a sense of kind of, you know, people are just at their wits' end. They're kind of, you know, even the cabinet, I think, was saying last week, there's a sense that the country's fraying at the edges. Well, I suggest it's not fraying at the edges, it's rotting from the middle. And Keir Starmer's right in the centre of that, because he can't get anything right either. And
yet, Mike, there's still so much goodwill. There are still so many. I know this is such a cheesy thing to say.
This country,
I was chatting to the guy who does the fruit stall in Hoxton. Lovely English bloke, and there's so much warmth amongst Brits who still care about the country, who really, really care.
Of course, absolutely right. But of course, the Prime Minister doesn't care about the country.
Which is why it's sad that he doesn't care.
He cares about another country. He cares about Palestine. And two stories this morning have caught my eye. Front page of the Times, and this is really kind of quite ironic, isn't it? Because this is a guy that lives and breathes human rights, lives and breathes international law.
He's meant to.
He's now being told, actually, his manoeuvring to try and give statehood to Palestine could risk breaking international law. And this is coming from an awful lot of very prominent KCs and you know, legal minds.
So this was 40 members of the House of Lords who signed this letter, who basically saying that his pledge to recognise Palestinian state would be contrary to the principles governing recognition of states in international law.
Yes.
So not just morally bankrupt, not just utterly inept. I mean, when he made this announcement, I genuinely was wondering, have I missed something here?
Yeah.
And Hamas, as you say, the reaction from Hamas joyfully predicting victory is closer than we expected in response to Starmer's utterly shameful
absolutely shameful. And even Sadiq Khan,
bungled kind of, did they talk this through?
Well, obviously not. I think they talk it through with a few people aged about 21 and a half who don't really know anything about the way the world works. Because even Sadiq Khan, who he professes is his friend, as he told Donald Trump the other day,
he's my
friend of mine, actually. You know, even Sadiq Khan has said, look, you can't use statehood as some kind of condition, right? That's not the way that it works. You either have statehood because you deserve it, and he says, I don't agree with him, but he says, well, you know, the Palestinian people deserve to have it. But you know, you can't just say, dangle it in front of somebody and say, we will ask for this statehood if Israel doesn't do something. Then it's a condition, and that's not right. That's against
and no conditions on Hamas. He's literally done it the wrong way round.
Yeah, I know. It's incredible.
Why not use that kind of... Well, he has absolutely no kind of international presence or reputation. Why not use that kind of pressure to get those hostages freed? What has he been doing for months and months and months?
Instead, he's ringing people like Mark Carney, the world's most boring man in Canada, to try and get him to sort of sign up to the Palestinian statehood thing as well. And it is absolutely nonsensical. We spoke yesterday to Michael Ellis, who's one of the former Attorney Generals of this country, and he made the same argument. And he said, you know, the conditions for statehood for this particular part of the world are not met. You can't just give somebody a country and say, now you've got a country.
Exactly.
It doesn't have any borders, doesn't have any kind of true definition of actually what it is, and it doesn't have a proper government.
But it is astonishing that this wasn't actually talked through from that perspective. I mean, given, as you say, Keir Starmer's background, what's Lord Herman doing? Is he not advising him at all?
This is meant to be his area of expertise.
Yeah, this is meant to be his area of expertise.
But this is where they give themselves away, because it's not just about being lawyers, it's about the right kind of law. You know, it's helping people that they want to help.
But it's also party politics and trying to appease, you know, trying to respond to the fruit and nut party. It's all sorts of things, isn't it?
Because the other thing that we should mention is, on the front page of The Guardian, the co-founder of Palestine Action can bring an unprecedented legal challenge to Yvette Cooper's decision to ban the group under anti-terrorism laws. So once again, they're getting tied up by their own they're hoisted by their own petard, tied up by their own law. They've tried to prescribe this group, tried to make Palestine Action a terrorist organisation like ISIS and like Al-Qaeda.
Oh, but we'll do it in September, but not now, because they're not...
But they've screwed it up because they haven't done it right. And so, as a result of which, you've now got people, old ladies getting arrested when they're demonstrating in the street. That's not the bit they need to stop. It's the bit where they're going into aircraft hangars and military installations and actually causing mayhem and cost to the British nation.
Absolutely.
People demonstrating on the streets, I don't have a problem with that. And they shouldn't be arresting old people because they have holding a sign up that says Free Palestine. Shouldn't be illegal.
They're not doing anything. They're holding up a placard there, even walking in a march. That's absolutely fine.
They might be ill-informed and stupid.
They're not covering their faces and having, pictures of parachutes on their sweatshirts or anything like that. And you're absolutely right. And it's a total waste of police resources. But guess what? Appeal after appeal after appeal. So they'll be fighting that ban in the courts. And as you say, Labour government haven't even done their sums. They haven't even checked what they can and can't do.
This is what he's meant to be good at. People say, oh yeah, but he's a lawyer. Well, he's not very good at that either, because on the front page of the Mail, we've got a former hostage, freed British Israeli hostage, talking about
Emily Damari.
Emily Damari, talking about how Starmer should feel shame for what he's doing, because as Hamas, as you say, responded to the PM's announcement that victory is closer than we expected. She said it risks rewarding terror and accused Sir Keir Starmer of a moral failure and being on the wrong side of history. Clearly, that's what he is. It's shocking, isn't it? It
really is shocking. By legitimising a state entity while Hamas still controls Gaza, the Prime Minister is not promoting a solution, he's prolonging the conflict. And this is really serious stuff.
It is.
It feels very panicky and reactive. He's got to do this, he's got to do that. He doesn't have any kind of moral compass. He doesn't know what he's trying to do or have any aims or any good advisors around him.
And I think the problem is he's obviously been doing what he's been doing for too long because he thinks that he can pull the wool over the world's eyes now. He doesn't think... he can tell a lie every single day of the week while he's a Prime Minister in Britain. But as he goes onto the international stage and he starts lying, people go, what's this guy all about? What's going on with him?
Well, I've given up hoping that one of these lies, one of these U-turns is going to catch him out. He seems to just carry on.
Exactly right. This from Dave in South Gloucester. Can we get that bloke from Ryanair to go and talk to Starmer and tell him if you can't do the job, stand aside and let someone do it who can? He could then tell the rest of this useless government the same. Unbelievable stuff, isn't it? How about this from Pete on migrants?
Morning, Mike. Great show as usual. Pete from Derby. I can't believe what I was watching on TV last night. That the government are turfing out people that are already in supported housing, like veterans. These particular veterans have got 2 months to vacate the property. I mean, come on, how further low can this government stoop? It's absolutely disgusting. Have a great day, mate.
Pete, thanks very much indeed. Yeah, people are very, very unhappy. And that particular story is up in Bolton, which has been running for a few days. The veterans living in Constellation House in Bolton fear they're going to be made homeless after they were issued with eviction notices from the supported accommodation earlier this month. And the fact is that there's a company called Qualitas Housing. They're denying that they're going to move in migrants. But, you've got to be looking at that and thinking, well, why are you moving out veterans? What's the purpose of that exactly? Why are you creating space and who's it for?
And there's another big story in the Times about this, another U-turn on the RAF migrant bases, where they have been lying. Right? I think they've been lying and saying we're not using, we're not using former migrant bases to house asylum seekers. But they're absolutely desperate. They don't know where to put them. And actually, it turns out they are.
Well, not only are they using them, but they're going to expand Wetherby now. They're going to put more people in it than there were before.
Another 500 people on a base, I think, that was designed for 800. What does that do to the local area? I mean, how do people locally feel about that?
Well, again, you're going to get more demonstrations because the people outside of the Wetherby RAF base were demonstrating last year because they weren't happy about what was going on, because people were coming and going, walking around, intimidating people,
Wethersfield in Essex, So the number of asylum seekers at Wethersfield in Essex will rise by more than 50%. Absolutely.
I know, because the trouble is too many of them. They've got to put them somewhere. And this is my point. If they shut them down in Epping, where the hell are they going to go? 0344 499 1000 is the number. This from Rachel. Morning, Mike and Emma. As protests continue to spread day by day, I can't help wondering how bad things have to get before this government do something. No one wants to see violence on our streets. No one wants to see that, but there's going to be an awful lot of unease and you know, tension. We saw that. We'll play more from the Waterlooville protest later in the hour, but you know, we can see people are just really angry, and when you hear them cheering when somebody shouts "send them home," I mean, that's where we are now in this country, because this government has completely screwed it up.
They have pushed people to the point where they are saying things like send them home.
Yeah.
And what's so sad is that these are local families. These aren't people who are in any way kind of politically motivated
the only
or
people who are
driven
being
by
shipped
anything.
in are the lefties who are being shipped in by the police.
Because they come in, and then it does cause violence, you know, and then night falls, and then problems rise, and we're going to see that. I think this weekend is going to be kind of a flashpoint, because as you say, there are so many protests
and there's not enough police to go around.
Peaceful vigils planned. I mean, the one in Clerkenwell that I keep mentioning, there are families who want to protest there, and then there's local churches who say these are sanctuary seekers, and they want to have a peaceful vigil, and it's one side and the other, and then the police saying, please don't come. And
speaking of sanctuary seekers, have you seen this story in the Mail today? Liberal Democrat-run council in Richmond, which is southwest London, offering asylum seekers free gym and swimming sessions, while working residents wanting the same would have to pay £52 a month, £52.50. Richmond Council giving sanctuary seekers, that's what they're calling them, a card that gives them access to facilities and group exercise classes at 5 fitness centres in the southwest London borough. It's just what you want, isn't it, when you're doing your Pilates class?
And when you've paid a lot for your...
a bucket load of money, or a spin class or something, and a couple of characters wander in from Eritrea.
Absolutely.
You know.
Free passes. Even the people on disability benefits are paying £30 a month for this. And these sanctuary seekers are getting local discounts on restaurant meals, just what you want, and free Spanish and French lessons.
Oh, great. Marvellous, isn't
well,
it?
I mean, this is Richmond.
Absolutely.
It's where Gary Lineker's from, or that's where he lives, so he can welcome them.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from John on the plains.
Morning, Mike. John from West Yorkshire here. So sorry to hear about the scenario at the air traffic control and airports and radar and what have you. But perhaps this is a bit of a sick comment, but didn't you mention a few months ago that at Heathrow and other airports, they were going to have some background music of planes taking off and the sound of holidays and all that sort of things, sounds of planes and what have you? So what did they play yesterday? One wonders. OK, have a good day. Cheers. Bye-bye.
John, very well remembered. Yeah, we did, because Heathrow said that they were going to play the sounds of an airport, right?
So what, to make you think you were going on holiday?
Apparently, this apparently was to prepare you, in case you were feeling nervous about travelling. This prepares you for the travelling experience, right? So yesterday, presumably the only planes you could hear taking off were on the tannoy system, imaginary planes taking off, and you'd be sitting there seething, going, my plane's just been grounded. What the hell is that noise? Unbelievable stuff. Shows you we're ahead of our time.
Close your eyes and think that you're going on holiday. It's all fine.
Howard in Suffolk says, Amsterdam Schiphol Airport's got 9 runways. This country is a joke. I mean, we can't even put a third one in.
But I mean, seriously, if you were a business, why would you invest in this country anymore?
I know.
Why would you?
Absolutely bonkers. Bonkers. Anyway, listen, we are here until 10 o'clock. We've got Emma Wolfe and we've got loads more stories to talk about. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 6:38. Emma Wolf is here as well. Leaders of the British Medical Association... Sorry, I'll try and start that one again. Leaders of the British Medical Association's GP committee have threatened winter strikes. Apparently, they've said that they're going to tell West Treating they will consider re-entering a dispute this autumn if their demands are not met.
Does this come before or after they say the NHS is facing its toughest winter yet?
No,
that we get that every year.
It's 24
Flu
hours
is going to kill us all.
Yeah, absolutely right. Do we have a voice note? No, we don't. Let's get Simon Calder instead, travel correspondent for The Independent, the man who is always at an airport or a railway station somewhere. Simon, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike. I'm actually at a port. I'm in beautiful Naples in Italy, but I'm watching the unfolding chaos, of course. Once again, you and I are talking about everything going wrong at, London Heathrow, as well as Gatwick, Manchester, and all the other leading airports as a result of yet another NATS air traffic control shutdown.
Yes. I mean, are we any closer to finding out what it was? I mean, we're told it was radar related, which sounds relatively serious if you're running an airport.
Exactly. Well, NATS, the air traffic control provider, simply said, technical issue means we've had to reduce the number of flights coming into the London area. What that actually meant was it's going to be chaos across the UK. Both NATS and the government are kind of playing down how bad it was in terms of saying, it was only 20 minutes or so. Actually, it was 40 minutes as far as I have been able to discern, in which basically nothing moved and dozens of flights were diverted to airports across continental Europe. And the cancellations, upwards of 150 flights yesterday. We've got another 15 cancelled today, including British Airways, a number of short-haul flights in and out of London Heathrow, and just thousands of people waking up where they didn't expect to be because they weren't able to get where they needed to be yesterday.
Yes, and like all the previous sort of problems that the airports and the airlines have had, it seems as though nobody's sort of carrying the can for it, and it doesn't seem as though anybody's got any idea of how to fix these things when they go wrong.
Well, NATS, in their defence, would say, first of all, we work absolute miracles most of the time, extracting a ridiculous amount of capacity from a very constrained system. London, absolutely the world capital of aviation, but we're working with two airports, which are Heathrow and Gatwick, at absolute maximum capacity. So cut us some slack for that.
No.
But unfortunately, it's critical national infrastructure, which is why, once again, and I calculated it was about an hour before Ryanair called for the resignation of Martin Rolfe. He's the chief executive of NATS. EasyJet, meanwhile, say they're extremely disappointed. They've also, collectively, the airlines lost a few £1 million in lost revenue in passenger care costs.
And because the airlines are blaming NATS and saying it's nothing to do with us, Gov, presumably if you want compensation, you can't get it from the airline, can you?
No, air passenger rights rules are absolutely clear. If the airline is not at fault, it does not have to pay out cash compensation, but equally clear are the fact that it needs to get you to your destination as soon as possible. The trouble is, flights are absolutely rammed, Mike, and therefore aren't spare seats where you can just say, oh, OK, you didn't fly from Manchester to Rhodes yesterday, have a seat on this plane today. It's really, really tough. And of course, the airlines also have to accommodate all those passengers who are waiting for their to get where they need to be in hotels, provide them with meals and so on. So, pretty glum from all points of view.
It's going to be miserable. Tony from Sussex just sent me this. He says, morning, Mike. As you know, I do quite a bit of work at Heathrow as a black cab driver. Last night, the queue for cabs at Terminal 5 was about a quarter of a mile long. Nearly an hour's wait for the passengers. We were taking people to hotels because of flight cancellations. I took some people to a hotel near Waterloo as they were told this was the nearest hotel available. They were not very happy. I mean, it's chaos. And the thing, the point that NATS always make, which is, we work miracles every day. Well, that's what's called doing your job, and if the system is so creaking at the edges that any small kind of glitch will knock it out for an hour, and that's not acceptable, And I think the trouble with Britain and the trouble with this country is that we've got people who say, "Oh, cut us some slack, give us a break, we're doing our best." Well, it's not good enough. And as the Ryanair guys has been saying today, Dara Brady, Director of Marketing, if you can't do the job, move out of the way and get somebody in who can.
Yeah, absolutely. But Martin Rolfe, the boss of NATS, survived the appalling August bank holiday meltdown when thousands of flights were cancelled, hundreds of thousands of passengers stranded. That they, of course, were demanding his resignation then. And that was just one of those weird software things where both the main air traffic control system and the backup took a look at a flight plan, decided they didn't like it, and thought, well, we're going to shut down then.
But that shouldn't happen. You know, but you say it's one of these weird software glitches, but it shouldn't happen. And that's my point, you know. And also it took longer to fix because the guy who was supposed to fix it was an engineer who was working from home. So he had to get in his car and drive for 90 minutes before he could even start working on it.
Yes, there was, of course, a lot of investigation into what went wrong there. And two, I suppose they would say, yeah, well, we had everybody on site, and so therefore we can fix the problem really quickly. Relatively speaking, they did. We're talking 40 minutes rather than many hours. Yeah. But with everything running at such a stretch, you get this delay domino effect, and things just unravel very, very quickly. Planes, pilots, passengers, cabin crew, all out of position, and getting them back is an awful lot of work. And there's for example, passengers inbound from Taipei who are still, I believe, in Frankfurt. They were due in last night. They'll get in at about tea time tonight because the pilots ran out of hours.
Oh, unbelievable stuff. Anyway, if I were you, I'd stay in Naples for a while, Simon, because hunker down and enjoy the pizza. I think that would be my suggestion to you. Go and have a wander around, the Pompeii ruins. Keep you busy for a few days. Good to see you, Simon Calder there from the Independent. I mean, just incredible, isn't it? Emma Wolf's here. This is the thing, though. This is the attitude in this country is, we work really hard, we do really well. You know, when it all goes horribly wrong, they cut us a bit of slack. It's not our fault. I'm sorry, I'm not going to cut you some bleeding slack.
You are running an airport. Heathrow and Gatwick are at maximum capacity. They are dangerously stretched. You can't have things just being knocked out for 40 minutes.
No.
Imagine you were having open heart surgery and the generator in the operating theatre failed for a bit. Like, that's the point. It can't fail.
No.
Or they need backup. There must be. It's a bit like when the release of those names for the Afghanistan cover-up. You know, I was talking to a security friend of mine, a cybersecurity friend, who said, in my local organisation, and he works in local housing, he said it couldn't happen.
Right.
We have the systems in place that the software wouldn't allow us to release that kind of information. And it's that kind of thing that worries me about these kind of, these are this is national infrastructure, critical infrastructure. How is it able for a software thing to think, I don't like that flight plan and go down for a bit like last August? How is it possible for this stuff to happen? How many, if you need 20 backups, I don't know how it works. Have them.
Right.
Have a team who are on site the whole time. It is that important. Because as Simon says, people are going to be all over, totally displaced. The cost in terms of hotel accommodation.
I bet you any money it runs all over the weekend. And imagine if you were just going away yesterday, say
for a long weekend.
For a long weekend, you're not
or
going
to someone's
now,
funeral, or to someone's wedding. This is real. This is people's lives, and when you can't rely on it,
I know.
You know,
absolutely shocking. This from Alan in Middlesbrough. 900 illegal migrants crossed the Channel from northern France yesterday. Isn't it time Starmer had another meeting with Macron to develop another agreement on how to stop this, even giving the French some more money? Well, that wouldn't be surprising, was it? Because he was telling Donald Trump only at the beginning of this week, I was signed a contract with France to send them back. And then he lied about how many people had been sending back, because he gave the same figure from last November, which he keeps giving because nobody else has been sent back. And he made out that these were people who had been forced to return to their countries, when that wasn't true, because actually most of them had volunteered to go back, and many of them were paid to go back. Right. So,
and also, Starmer's favourite thing is having a little bromance meeting with... it's embarrassing. When he meets with Macron and all of that pouring at each other and the hugs and the air kisses and stuff outside Downing Street, it's embarrassing. No more meetings with Macron. Wasn't it glorious when Donald Trump said, you know how many crossings and you know how many illegal entrants we had last month?
Yeah, none.
0.
Exactly right.
That's how to do it.
This from Graham in Bushy. The UK air traffic control system, NATS, should be renamed NAF. Yeah, I think that's a very good one. Let's get a voice note for Nuts, is even better. Voice note from Kitty.
Morning, Mike and team. Kitty from Kent here. So I've got to go away to Manchester in a couple of weeks with work, and we have quite a low allowance for a hotel stay, which is fair enough because the taxpayer pays it. But I'm thinking, seeing as I live in Folkestone, I could pop down to Dover, get in a dinghy, come in on the shore, get shipped up to Manchester, stay in a 5-star hotel, take a hash masher, smoke some fags, and have a jolly good time. And maybe I won't even go to work. Or maybe I'll go to work and ask to be paid in cash. What do you think? Sounds like a life.
I think you've got a very good point there, Kitty. I mean, there's plenty of people doing it, by the way, so you wouldn't be the first to just, freeload your way through Britain. You probably get free rail travel as well. You wouldn't even have to pay for the airfare if you went by plane, if there were any planes flying, that is. We've still got plenty to do, lots more stories to talk about, including 3 million jobless households now, apparently, in Britain, just in case you were wondering where all the money's going. And we've got to talk still about the Manchester airport story and the attacker who's found guilty yesterday. 6:49.
Qatar, surprise, surprise, and Saudi are saying Hamas can no longer rule Gaza in order for there to be a path to peace or a two-state solution. Keir Starmer didn't say that. That's ridiculous. Keir Starmer just put conditions on Israel, which are ridiculous conditions. Like you said, anybody reading that would have thought that they made a mistake. And that's what we have. Again, I think it's performative. It's very damaging for us. But ultimately, thank God that the United States have got some moral clarity on this issue.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:51. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. We are the home of common sense. Breaking news, GPs are threatening winter strikes, believe it or not. Now that the old junior doctors have come back from their 5-day strike, the GPs are having some of it. They've told West Streeting they will consider re-entering a dispute this autumn if their demands are not met. It's marvellous, isn't it? So not only can you not see a doctor now, you can't not see them because they're so busy. Now you can't not see them because actually they're on strike.
And it'll be nurses, and then it'll be ambulance drivers, and then we really will be in the upper Swanee.
Like a full house of medical emergencies.
Especially for winter, for GPs, when people have the sort of low-level kind of flu and things like that they get over winter, then they'll end up in A&E. The whole thing is a joke. And why wouldn't they? As you say, why wouldn't they? If they see other people getting 29%, nearly 29% over the last 3 years.
I know.
Why
the
shouldn't they
GP
get more?
supposedly just got a settlement as well. Let's talk about the Manchester airport attack, though. Page 17 of The Sun. Guilty of attack on women cop. cops. And this is a guy by the name of Mohammed Fahir Amaz, painted as a victim of police brutality, if you remember the way the story originally unfolded. A lot of Labour ministers as well under fire yesterday from Robert Jenrick, who said, you know, we need to know what side you're on, because initially when that first video came out, everybody jumped on it and went, oh, this is police brutality. It now would appear that Mohammed Fahir Amaz has indeed been found guilty on 3 counts of assault after studying hours of CCTV and body cam footage from the scene. Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, Sir Stephen Watson, welcomed the verdict in respect of Amaz, whose appalling conduct, he said, has now been exposed to legitimate public scrutiny.
Amazing that it took them so long.
I know.
I mean, I hate to be old-fashioned. I was thinking about my father and what he would have said. Who on earth would dare to punch... I think the short footage that we've all seen on social media should have been enough to convict that man.
You would have thought so.
To be punching a woman, and I think one of the female officers actually had to have her nose like surgically realigned after that attack.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems to have taken them a very, very long time to come to the decision.
Yeah, exactly right. And so what was said yesterday in Parliament by Robert Jenrick said the police need to know we've got their backs when they tackle violent offenders. Because he said basically Lucy Powell had first of all gone on the attack over the police brutality. Yvette Cooper as well, the Home Secretary at the time. It's just very strange because their instinct, their assumption is the police must have done something wrong.
Of course. Sort of like the instinct to cover up Axel Cabana. We just had the Southport sort of anniversary.
Yeah.
This odd kind of assumption that they're on the right side.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I mean, justice will be seen to be done. Amaz was 20 years old, remanded in custody pending a bail application today at Liverpool Crown Court. And then there's more kind of slightly complicated legalities around some of the other charges as well, which we'll learn more about as the days go on. But let's talk about another story which is in the Mail on page 8. 3 million jobless households now in this country, and that means that the people in those households, of all the people living there, there's no one working. Sick note, Britain.
About 40% of people living in households with no employed adults are out of work because, guess what, they're sick or disabled.
Yeah.
I mean, either
it's a lot of people, isn't it? 3 million.
3 million people out of a country of, what are we now? I was going to say 60-something, but we're
61 points. Well, I think we're closer to 70 than we are to 60.
Yeah.
But the official figure, according to what the Office of National Statistics is, I think is 61.8 or something like that. I think that's what they're telling us.
The level, I mean, unless people have become significantly sicker and more disabled than a few decades ago, it is astonishing that you have so many households where children are basically growing up, seeing their parents, seeing family members not working.
It's an intergenerational thing, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, you know, people used to talk about the importance of getting up, putting on a suit, brushing your teeth, getting out of the house,
and
going to work.
This number is now its highest level since records began in 2006, and it's partly ballooned because of COVID, right? There's a human cost behind the benefits. This is from Helen Whately, who's the Work and Pension Shadow Minister. There's a human cost behind it. Families dependent on benefits, children growing up without the role model of working parents, ever higher taxes hitting the pockets of those who are in work to pay for the benefits. That's the problem. So for those of us who are actually paying tax, and I was saying this all week, that, you know, unfortunately for those of us who work for ourselves, the end of July is payday for the HMRC brigade. You know, I've sent them bucket loads of money in order to keep myself on the right side of the law, and they're giving it all away to people who don't fancy going to work, and a load of migrants.
They really are. And, and another
I'm starting
thing,
to get a bit resentful.
I am. I'm starting to get really, really angry about this stuff. And also when you see that even the public services you are paying for don't work. The state schools are absolute rubbish. The NHS is on its knees, as we always hear. But another thing that Helen Whately said, the takers outweigh the makers. Yeah. It's really, really true,
It can't carry on, can it?
It cannot.
Shall we finish up with one funny story, which is one funny story I found. King Charles has launched stylish tweed jackets costing almost £50 for dogs.
Not even funny. I'm not very amused with King Charles at the moment.
His royal harness is a good headline, though. Don't you think?
Yeah, that's fine. But he's not making me laugh at all. Lectures on LGBTQ in Windsor. Telling everybody to take in asylum seekers into their home. I mean, King Charles is being a bit embarrassing at the moment.
Well, he is, perhaps so. Notice in a shop in Sandringham's Royal Tweed area says, Sandringham's loyal and trusted doggy visitors to the Royal Parkland have been the inspiration for this collection. Pooches in the Parkland can now look effortlessly stylish while enjoying a walk wearing an elegant coat made in Sandringham Royal Tweed. Does he get to keep the money for that,
I was going to say, I think he's got quite a lot of commercial ventures going on. They do spin out a lot of those. you know, royal endorsements, don't they?
Well, it's better than jam, I suppose. But I mean, yeah.
Well, Meghan's gone quiet.
She has.
I'm your Meghan specialist. I know Kinsey is, but I'm your Meghan specialist. And if Meghan and Harry pop up again, we need to talk about
well,
them.
I mean,
What's
happening?
What
you
is
say
happening?
it's gone a bit quiet, but I think
the
she's got a new...
Netflix deal was cancelled.
she's got some kind of a new product launch going on, I think.
Oh, as ever.
I read that. Yeah,
or with Love Meghan.
Yeah, no, but as ever, she's got a new product launch.
What's the new product?
It says...
Is it disgusting?
Another new product coming to As Ever line, but it might be hard for customers to spot what's new with this one. Because it's basically it's some kind of new wine, I think, that she's bringing.
Oh, I see. And someone tasted that and said it was absolute vinegar.
I'm sure it wasn't great.
It was a bottle of rosé. You drink rosé.
I do.
It was a bottle of rosé. It was way more than a nice bottle of rosé.
Yeah.
It was sort of cost like $60 or something,
Yeah.
and it was really, really unpleasant.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you want to buy some more of it, there's some more wine coming your way.
Amazing.
So look forward to that.
Look forward to that.
But yeah, so we've got lots more to do. Let's get a voice note from Tony.
Morning, Mike. Tony from Nottingham. Even J.D. Vance and Trump can see this in America. J.D. Vance has come out and said that Europe is committing suicide. It's not like we're committing suicide. It's like we're strapped to the chair and you've got people like Starmer and Macron circling us in white coats. That's what's going on. It's being forced upon us.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great, is it? There's no great news out there today, I'm afraid.
There is no great news, and it is sad, and it's not that we're committing suicide. We're just watching our country being ruined, being slowly strangled.
Well, it's being sort of driven over a cliff by Keir Starmer and his hapless group of ministers.
I feel so powerless. This is what's so depressing. I think people feel very powerless at the moment. When they try and, you know, raise issues or talk things through, they're dismissed.
Right.
I don't. Yeah. How do we get change?
Yeah, you don't know better than they do. Oh dear, Keir, says Susan. I think he's a bit thick. He's blagged his way through his career. He doesn't know when he's being laughed at, and he thought saying Mayor Khan was his friend was a good thing. Heaven help us. Keep up the pressure. Yeah, well, now Sadiq Khan, his good friend, is disagreeing with him about Palestine, so that was a waste of time. Emma, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Emma Wolf there. She'll be back again soon. We'll be back, of course, after the news. We've got lots more to do and plenty of people to talk to. James Price is here. We'll take more of your calls as well. You know what to do. This is Morning Glory.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would the people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those, the smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks when more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Yeah. Well, sure, the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer is on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham. It is Thursday, the 31st of July, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of rain coming today, apparently, as if to mark the end of a rather, shall we say, stormy week for Keir Starmer, because he is once again finding himself waking up this morning deep in the doo-doo, because not only has he been told by his fellow lawyers, the legal fraternity for which he has so much respect, that basically his idea of giving statehood to Palestine is possibly a breach of international law and won't be possible to be done. He's got that problem. He's also waking up to more news that the spreading tide of unrest around the country has reached epic proportions. It's now hit somewhere called Waterlooville. It's also happening in Manchester, up in Altrincham there, all related, of course, to migrants, whether it be moving them into a hotel, whether it be them living in a hotel, whether it be moving them from a hotel into some private accommodation, which is the case in Hampshire. We've got local demonstrations going on all over the country. Keir Starmer still doesn't want to acknowledge it, doesn't want to admit that it's going on, and I'm afraid the numbers are speaking for themselves this morning, because immigration has fueled the two biggest annual rises in the population of England and Wales since the Second World War. It grew by 700,000 in the year to June 2024 to nearly 62 million, the second largest annual increase since records began in 1949. It was only beaten by the previous year, 821,000 increase to the population from mid-2022 to mid-2023. So we've basically got 1.5 million extra people living in England and Wales, and many of them are actually living, it would seem, in sheltered accommodation paid for by the taxpayer. Most of them have come from abroad. Practically 90% of the people who have boosted our population are all foreign. Also, of course, the biggest story on the front pages this morning is the ridiculous state of affairs at Heathrow Airport yesterday, where all British airspace was shut down as a result of a technical glitch, apparently, according to the people that run the air traffic control system. Front page of The Sun has got, here we go again, holes ruined for thousands, tech glitch grounds UK jets. Supposedly 577,000 people were affected by all of these flight cancellations. Flights were diverted, delayed, cancelled. The problems are still ringing around the world. There are people coming in from Taipei, we just heard from Simon Calder in the last hour, who were still stuck in Frankfurt. Let's get a voice note from Nick.
Hi Mike, Nick from Chichester here. As every pilot will tell you, every aeroplane has a redundant system, so if one of them goes down, another one takes over. Some planes even have two redundant systems. And the first thing I thought of when the radar went down over England was that, well, why didn't the second one kick in? Now I've just learnt the Nats hasn't got a redundant system. What a bunch of planks.
Yeah, the only airport sounds you could hear at the Heathrow Airport yesterday were the fake ones, which were going out, planes taking off, people going through air security, people getting welcomed into immigration. Oh, by the way, 900 more people came on the small boats yesterday. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. I don't know why I'm smiling. I mean, it's just ridiculous now, isn't it? I mean, it just gets more ridiculous by the day. I work in aerospace, says Lewis, and the amount of issues we see could easily be solved. They all try to run these businesses with absolute minimum spend and budget. You warn the bosses and they don't want to hear it. I'm actually sick of being right all the time in my job and giving them warnings to what will fail, when and why. The question has to be asked, what is driving this weak output? I think it's woke culture, inexperience and the government. Well, Lewis, I think you'll probably find that almost everything you've said there is right. And I'm like you. I'm tired of being right all the time as well. I mean, I've been saying for years that the numbers of people coming into this country are boosting our population figures to such an extent that we'll be creaking at the seams, which we now apparently are. Let's talk to James Price, former government advisor. James, very good morning to you.
Like you, my friend, I'm getting tired of being right all the time about what a state the country's in.
I know. And I mean, the metaphor, I guess, today for what's broken in Britain is what happened in the air traffic control system yesterday. That we've got people running, you know, really, really important infrastructure projects in Britain who don't know what they're doing. Simply put, that's where we are.
It's hard to tell. You're absolutely right. It's hard to tell at this point whether it is incompetence or deliberate malice from foreign state or non-state actors. It's almost indistinguishable to understand whether the British state is actually being run secretly by the Russians and the Chinese with agents on the ground or something, or it's just complete incompetence, or it is the Labour Party at this point wanting things to be destroyed ever more. You know, as you said, on top of every other mess up there's been yesterday, another 900 men of fighting age have crossed over on small boats illegally to come here to, at best, become economic migrants, or probably just to sponge off the state, or at worst, what else are they going to be doing? And that's on top of everything else. And we can't even escape the country now if you wanted to, because the planes have been grounded yet again.
I know. Absolutely incredible stuff. And of course, one of the things that we're now seeing more and more of, which the Prime Minister still refuses to kind of identify and refuses to acknowledge, are these public protests. Last night, the new one was in Waterlooville down in Hampshire, where it turns out there's a whole series of new builds which are down there, new homes and flats, which are run by a guy, owned in fact and built by a guy who also owns a migrant hotel quite near the area. And hundreds of people turned out in Waterlooville against the plan to move a load of migrants into these new flats, because they say what you should be doing is housing veterans, housing homeless people, housing local people who have been waiting on, you know, council waiting lists for years and years and years. But instead, no, they're going to give it all to migrants. And let's have a quick look at this local man, Christopher, protesting yesterday.
No, I don't think it's fair. As a pensioner, I've worked since I was 15 years of age. I'm now in my 70s. And, you know, I don't really feel that my taxes should be going to people who are in 5-star hotels or 4-star hotels. If it was people who, you know, were our veterans or disabled veterans or people on hard times, it's not so bad. You know, everyone wants to chip in. But when it's, you know, when it's people coming over for a free ride in some ways, I object.
And the problem here, and that, you know, these are not members of the far right in Britain. These are just ordinary members of the public who are having their say and going out on the streets, and you know, they're waving England flags, and some of them are waving Union Jacks. But they're chanting, "Send them home. Send them home." You know, and this is the state that we've got to. There was another protest last night in Hoylake, up in Merseyside, where there's a former Holiday Inn, which is believed to be now being turned into a migrant hotel, and the police had to be called because there was another public protest. You know, Starmer can't keep ignoring this, can he?
No, absolutely not. Just to well what that chap said a minute ago, and how he looked and how angry he was and all he's done for this country and all the rest of it. I look at that bloke and I see a version of my old man who's worked his whole life, who's contributed to the system, who loves his country, and who can't quite understand why, after voting every single time, as the British public have done, to lower migration and to have fewer foreigners coming into this country and sponging off the state, why there are more and more and more of them. And I look at a bloke whose opinion I respect and I agree with. If you're a Labour politician watching this, or a hardcore Labour member, you look at that man and you do see a far-right fascist now, because that's how mad and how far degenerated the Labour Party has become. So just a little warning there for anybody who's still thinking that maybe the Labour Party are the people to vote for come any future election ever again. They look at that chap and they don't see a patriot, they see a scumbag they want to put in prison for saying mean things. Just a side point there.
Yeah.
On the protests itself, where is it going to end? Because I stand with these people in Waterlooville. I think this is Suella Braverman's constituency. And actually, interestingly, she came out on Twitter or whatever it's called these days and said, "I'm proud of these people and I stand with them. No arrests, no violent attacks, just decent patriotic people expressing their right to protest." And that itself is an interesting shift, that you're now seeing mainstream politicians starting to stand with these people. And why not? Because they don't want these dodgy, dangerous fighting age men who we know are sniffing around primary schools. Police having to say, listen, in this country, we don't go up and just touch women willy-nilly, or whatever the weak way the police are trying to say this stuff.
Yeah.
But Well, if they get moved out of Waterlooville here, the way they got moved out of Epping, the way they got moved out of the Britannia and Canary Wharf, they're just going to go to some other community, and they're going to be ferried around and around and around like a kind of pinball machine. All the meanwhile, more and more people are coming, and the Labour Party are not getting to grips with it. The only way they get to grips with it, in their mind, is they just say to these people, yes, your asylum claim is definitely valid. You definitely look gay to me, if that's what they've claimed to do, or whatever it is that they're claiming that they're fleeing from persecution, when we know that these people are fibbing about this and have been trained to fib by dodgy lefty charities. They'll just give them a home, they'll give them eventually a passport and expect that they'll vote Labour for the rest of their lives. Their actions haven't changed, their behaviours, their kind of cultural third worldism won't have changed. It's just that they'll be living in a house paid for that's next door to you, or pretending that they're a child and going to your school and then going around and committing crimes. We know that so many of them do more than the British people.
Well, we saw this week...
The only way for it to end is to send them back.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this week an insight into the way that these migrant hotels operate. We had some footage from inside, I don't know if you saw, inside the Copthorne Hotel in Crawley in West Sussex, which is sort of just on the outskirts of Gatwick Airport, pretty much. And a very nice, luxury, five-star hotel, 3 square meals a day that they get, all provided for them for free. A look through some of the rooms that they had. They've all got laptops, they've got PlayStations, they've got ashtrays, they've got weed grinders. The obviously evidence that they're smoking pot, right, in these hotels. Loads of designer gear as well, some of which may have been shoplifted, some of which may have been bought. They come and go as they please. If you put them into a house, right, and say, OK, we're going to move you out of a hotel, in order to provide them with the same standard of living, you'd have to pay them loads of money so that they could buy all that stuff for themselves. But obviously, we're not going to do that. So how is it even going to work?
Well, you never know. We might start doing that. That might be the new Labour manifesto. Let's give all these guys, let's just take your bank card and give it to them, right? Or mine, or anyone who's watching this. Because that is essentially what is happening. The huge amounts of money that we're spending on this, right? It's something like £1 billion a month that go on benefits for foreigners in this country. So people who are not British citizens, who are here and don't work and don't try and work and claim benefits. £1 billion a month, that's 12 billion quid a year. That's about 2.5 times what the Labour Party were saying they were going to try and save in those welfare savings, which they then didn't even bother doing. £12 billion. That's like, what, a couple of aircraft carriers? Instead, that just goes straight into the pockets of lazy foreigners who are here not working. Send all those people back to where they came from, back to where they should be living, go and be amongst their own people and their own cultures, see if their own people want to put them up on benefits, let alone all of these asylum seekers.
Yeah, I know.
The
and also,
only way it's going to work is to send them home.
And particularly prescient in July, because July, of course, for those of us who work for ourselves, is the month that we have to pay a load of money to the tax man. And I've just, I would say sort of, in retrospect, signed a cheque. You don't sign cheques anymore, you just send it electronically so they get it even quicker. But, they feel like I've written a cheque for thousands of pounds to the government, and they're just going to give it away to these guys. Or one of the many, what do you call it, unemployed homes, 3 million now, workless homes in this country. And the number of us who are actually paying tax is getting smaller. The number of people who are on the take is getting bigger.
Yeah, absolutely right. A particular bugbear of mine, I like you have to do that and you send off not a cheque anymore, but online, and you do feel the pain of that money going away, whereas most of the people who are on PAYE or pay as you earn never feel that money going into their account and then leaving it again. It just kind of is stolen by the tax man before you ever get to see it. Can you imagine how much more angry people would be at the way that the Labour Party is spending our money if you had that money in your account for a while and then you had to send it off twice a year? You'd really then, I think, like they do in America, which is what they have to do, you'd really be a lot more pro low taxes and lower spending if you could feel that. I think that would be an interesting way for us to reconnect with, even though it would be more efficient, to reconnect with how wasteful things are. And people who are watching the live stream and seeing all these chaps coming in off the small dinghies, if you are paying a self-assessment bill this week, or even you get your pay slip and have a look, see how much tax is going out, just remember that a huge amount of that money is going to these people who are fighting age men who've crossed over here illegally to do God knows what.
I know, absolutely staggering. And we learned as well this morning, thanks to the Office for National Statistics, that immigration has fueled the second largest population increase in England and Wales since records began in 1949. 700,000 people in the last 12 months to June 2024. So you can imagine that that will be even a bigger number by the time we get to the figure for June 2025. But the previous year, 821,000. So we're talking, you know, 1.5 million new people in this country in the last 2 years, completely and utterly down to immigration. And quite frankly, I think we're now up to nearly 62 million people just in England and Wales.
Well, where do these people live? Even if they were all the next William Shakespeare, which I'm willing to wager they're not, where are they going to live? Right, we're building, what, 150,000 homes a year, maybe, and there's already a massive housing crisis.
Right.
Already young people who are thinking they're never going to get
Although,
to...
hang on, Keir Starmer seems a bit confused about the housing crisis, because yesterday he said there was a housing crisis, but the week before he said there were loads of houses.
No, there are loads of houses for asylum seekers to be paid for out of our taxpayers' money. Very, very different, of course. And this is the two-tier system coming in again.
Yeah.
That if you're a young person listening to this, or you're the parents of some young people who are facing the prospect of never being able to afford to own their own home, because we haven't, frankly, built nearly enough houses, and those we've bought have been built that have been ugly and not very pleasant and all the rest of it. I agree with that. But you will never get to do that, and yet the people we're watching on the screens now who are coming over on dinghies have a better chance of having some secure housing than anybody else. And so it's no wonder that the Adam Smith Institute, with which I'm associated this week, put out some polling that said that a quarter of young people are seriously considering or planning on emigrating. And that is just a total failure of our country, that our countrymen are deciding there's no future for them here, and they're leaving, and they are now being replaced by fake bogus asylum seekers from the third world who've got no love of our culture.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? And just to make things worse for you this morning, I'm sorry about this, but I'm going to tell you about Richmond Council, a Liberal Democrat-run council down in southwest London, offering asylum seekers free gym and swimming lessons, basically, which if you were working there and paying council tax, it would cost you around about £52 a month to have this, right? And not only that, but Richmond Council refers to asylum seekers and illegal migrants as sanctuary seekers.
Jeez. I mean, I've almost lost the words there. The first bit of that, of course, is the sanctuary stuff is straight out of the American hard left.
Yeah.
The sanctuary city stuff is the stuff that has destroyed California, which should be the fourth richest economy in the world if it were its own country, and is now just full of drug addicts and the street and crime and people pooping all over the streets. That's a sanctuary city for you. Richmond is so expensive. Mrs. Price wanted us to move down to Richmond, and even though, you know, we're doing pretty well for ourselves, I don't think we can afford it, and yet people coming off a dinghy, right? And the number of times I've heard is Mrs. Price is an American and has struggled with visa stuff despite paying shed loads of tax. If I hear one more person say, well, she should have come over on a small boat, because she probably should have done it.
I know. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous. James, anyway, my regards to Mrs. Price and to your good self, former government advisor James Price there. Let's get a voice note from Jay.
This migrant crisis has been going on for far too many years. Too many prime ministers kick the can down the road with it. The real question needs to be asked: why? Why? Why is there no will to stop it? Why are they letting it happen? And this is a question that needs asking right across Europe. Why? Why do they let it carry on?
Why do they let it carry on? Absolutely right. Jay, thank you very much indeed. J.D. Vance, of course, has been speaking about this. Have a look.
I'm not, yes, the Europeans annoy me sometimes, and yes, I disagree with them on certain issues, but we have to remember that is the cradle of Western civilization. The entire idea of Christian civilization that led to the founding of the United States of America, that was formed in Europe. The cultural bonds, the religious bonds, these things are going to last beyond political disagreements, but I think that Europe, and frankly, I would have said this about America a year ago, but Europe is at risk, I think, of engaging in civilizational suicide. They are unable to, or unwilling, too many countries to control their borders. You see them starting to push back against that, and good, that's a good thing. You see them starting to limit the free speech of their own citizens, even as those citizens are protesting against things like the border invasion that got Donald Trump and a number of European leaders elected. So look, I want Europe to thrive. I want them to be an important ally. Part of that is going to be Europe respecting its own people, respecting its own sovereignty, and America can't do that job for them.
Amazing that you have to have J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States of America, to actually lay it out for you. You know, maybe Keir Starmer could be sent a copy of that and have a look at it and see what you can do. Because right now, Britain is in a pretty bad place, and you can't even fly anywhere because the plane system doesn't work, right? and the one-way system on the channel, you know, there's only one way, and you can get a ferry across to Calais if you want, but there's an awful lot of people coming the other way, I'm afraid. It's 7:21. This from Sharon in Staffordshire. It doesn't surprise me 3 million jobless households in the UK due to disability and sickness. Some of them are just playing the benefit system, driving around in brand new cars and going on holiday all the time, paid for by the taxpayer. How can this be fair to working people? Well, it's not fair, and that's exactly the point. Fewer and fewer of us are paying for more and more people. And it doesn't work like that. You can't run an economy on that at all. You cannot base anything on it. It's a failing system. Coming up, we're going to speak to the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Alex Burghardt MP. Norman Brennan will join us as well to talk about what happened in that Manchester airport case yesterday. This is Talk.
It'll be the United Arab Emirates, Saudi, Egypt, Jordan and Bahrain. They want no truck with this offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. So recognition can actually not only help isolate Hamas, but also neutralize Iran's case against Israel and therefore its support for the proxies. So I would argue recognition can play a strategic role. And if you're saying not now, then when? Because the window to secure that two-state solution, I'm afraid, is closing.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
By all means, enjoy this moment. Nobody can say you haven't waited patiently. Enjoy the feeling of waking up on a morning like this.
Yeah, really enjoy it, especially if you're in a hotel. You've paid about 400 quid for overnight when you should have been waking up in Mallorca, but your flight didn't take off yesterday due to the failing system of the British air traffic control operation, because they don't have a backup. Absolutely incredible. We're going to talk to Alex Burghardt MP, but just before we do that, yet more freebies for the asylum seekers we've discovered. This is a Guido story this morning from Bradford Council. Bradford Council, by the way, hiked their council tax by 10% this year, but don't worry, if you're an asylum seeker, you will be able to get a range of discounts on a whole host of different activities. Brian, you basically just get a Bradford leisure card for just £3 a year if you're a pensioner, but if you're on benefits or an asylum seeker, you get it for free. Games of bowls, tennis, putting and pitch and putt, all very nice. Discounts at the Alhambra Theatre and the St George's Hall. Discounts at the Doe Park Water Activity Centre, which include sailing, canoeing, kayaking, stand-up paddle boarding, dragon boating and raft building. I suppose you could get a free dinghy ride as well if you wanted. Oh no, you've already had one of those. Don't worry. Reduced price swimming admission to all normal swimming sessions and free equipment hire. It's great, isn't it? Absolutely incredible. It's no wonder we haven't got any bleeding money. Let's talk to Alex Burghardt, MP, Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Alex, very good morning to you.
Morning. Thanks for having me on.
Good to see you. I mean, we could talk about the migrants, but let's not talk about them for the moment. Let's talk about Palestine as well, because this morning, front page of the Times has got a letter from some very senior KCs, 40 members of the House of Lords, basically saying that Sir Keir Starmer's pledge to recognise a Palestinian state risks breaking international law.
And look, it's clear that the government's position is just a real mess, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
The fact is that they've gotten themselves into a position where, because Jeremy Corbyn has created a new party, they now feel the need to go out and start making promises to Palestine and Hamas, right? That, what we're actually seeing is the Labour government say that they're prepared to come to terms with a recognised terrorist organisation to recognise Palestine, whilst Hamas is still holding many Israeli hostages. It's completely unacceptable, but it's really symptomatic of a kind of political panic that has taken over their party. And I think it's pretty disgraceful.
It really is. And when you get Hamas actually responding to Keir Starmer's announcement by saying victory is closer than we expected, it kind of tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it?
Well, it completely does. I mean, this is what they have been, fighting for all of these years, is to get Western powers to say, actually, do you know what? It's okay. And it's pressure within the Labour Party that has put Keir Starmer in this position. It's the fact that he's worried about a bunch of his MPs and a lot of his voters going off to support Jeremy Corbyn's pro-Gaza political group. And we're just going to see a lot more of this kind of knee-jerk politics from the Prime Minister as his political position crumbles underneath him.
Yeah. And, I mean, I've been talking about this all week, that, he became obsessed with Gaza last weekend. He was tweeting about it. He then sort of decided he would jump on the sort of Lionesses bandwagon for a bit. He's also ignoring, it seems to me, deliberately, a lot of the unrest that's going on up and down the country, which is now spreading to all points, sort of north, south, east and west. It's not just Epping. We've got Waterlooville last night, where a group of people gathered. And, this is getting serious, and he can't just keep ignoring it, can he?
He just wants it to go away, and it's not going to go away. I mean, I gave a speech Onward Think Tank a few weeks ago where I said, we saw what happened in Southport last year. We saw what happened in Northern Ireland a few months ago in Ballymena. And this sort of thing could become much more regular. And I don't think the government's ready for it. The government needs to have comprehensive policing plan in place to deal with this. But most importantly, have a plan to shut down the migrant hotels and make sure that hard-working people who are very hard-pressed don't see, as you were setting out a moment ago, Mike, migrants getting much better treatment than they are as taxpayers.
And that is the problem, isn't it? Because there's just too many of them here now. I mean, we've got immigration figures this morning from National Office of Statistics, basically saying in the last 2 years an extra 1.5 million people came here. It's not sustainable in any way, shape or form.
It's not sustainable. All of my constituents know it's not sustainable. People around the country know it's not sustainable. And that's why it's very depressing that we've got a Labour government in power that has absolutely no plan to halt either legal or illegal immigration. I think they've got their head in the sand. It's another issue that they just hope is going to go away, and it's not. It's getting worse every single day.
It really is. It's dreadful. Alex, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Alex Burghardt, MP, Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. This from Dave in Aberdeen. He says, morning, Mike. One good thing about GPs going on strike, we'll be able to go to the picket line to see them. No need to go through the 8 a.m. scramble. Very good. And Darren in South Wales says, morning, Mike. 3 million non-working households. I can believe that. I think a good few of them are on my street. Regards. And then Gaz in Scunny says, if Palestine becomes a state, does that mean it will support itself, or will it be freeloading off the likes of us? Well, that's a very good question as well. We'll come back to that, because now we're going to talk to Norman Brennan, former police officer and director of the Law and Order Foundation as well. Because, of course, as we said last night, the news came through that the Manchester airport attackers and the court case that they've been involved in for the past several weeks have now finally come to an end. The police chief has praised the public after a student is convicted of beating up PCs. And that is, of course, a man by the name of Amaz. Mohammed Fahir Amaz fought and grappled with the officer and 2 female colleagues yesterday after a 4-week trial in Liverpool. 20-year-old Amaz was convicted of assaulting PC Lydia Ward, causing actual bodily harm. Norman, very good morning. Very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Mike.
Terrible case, this. Took a lot longer in many ways than some people thought to go through the trial process. The jury was offered in the end a majority verdict rather than a unanimous one, and there are some complications around it, but it would seem as though justice has been done in this man's case.
Well, yes, part justice, because as we know, there's going to be a retrial on the ABH on PC Marsden for both Amaz and Ahmad, his brother, yes. So we can't discuss that. But, yeah, we've got part justice at the moment. You're right, this case has taken a huge amount of time, and almost a month for a case when I was in the police that would take no longer than a week.
Yeah.
It kept stopping for legal arguments, and I think that was because of the outrage across the country on social media. But you're absolutely right, we got there in the end, and one of the main things that I was concerned about is that when they were arrested, Mike, we cautioned them when you are interviewed, you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned, something you later rely on in court. What happened there, neither answered any questions at all, yet Amaz, a year later, came up with this most elaborate, made-up, manufactured defence that he was actually defending himself. He didn't have a clue why the police were coming up to him, yet 3 minutes beforehand had headbutted somebody, an innocent member of the public, and punched him twice and was pumped up, and the rest is history. It is clear that he was out of control, and then what they tried to do is turn it against the police, as though the police were the attackers, when it was the complete reverse.
Well, that's true. And Robert Jenrick yesterday, the Tory Justice Minister, was very vocal, wasn't he, in criticising Lucy Powell for a start, and also Yvette Cooper, who initially, when the first sort of footage of this exchange took place, were very quick to be critical of the police and the way that they were behaving.
Absolutely. All the grandstanders at the time. I remember, because I picked it up when it first happened, and I got millions and millions of impressions on it. But the simple reason is, I said, hang on a minute, there's going to be more to this. And hey-ho, the scramble for the police officer to be suspended happened. He was suspended overnight. And then the other bit of video evidence come along, and almost the entire country looked at it in a completely different way that they'd done before. And this happens too often on social media. But you had the Home Secretary, even Andy Burnham and all of the others, almost condemning the GMP police officers, when, Mike, all that they had done is their job. And we saw a stamp on somebody's head. It wasn't as heavy as some make it out to be. But here we're talking about an airport. We're talking about armed police officers. We're talking about 2 suspects, one of whom we're discussing now that has been convicted of 3 offences, having been charged with 4, that were out of control. In other airports, Mike, there's a very good likelihood they may have been shot.
Absolutely right. Certainly if they tried it on in America or several European airports, they probably would have been facing a far different state of affairs. But I'm also reading this morning in the Telegraph that the officers at the centre of the attack could still face the sack over the incident. So they've still got some things to worry about.
Well, yes, there was a complaint made to GMP. It's what often happens, is that people always complain about us. They try and make life as difficult for us as possible. But these officers that were just going about their normal duty that day, and it's PC Marsden is one of them, and there's another one, they have been under investigation from the Crown Prosecution Service. After a long time, the CPS said there was no criminal charges for any of the officers, and rightly so. But they're now under investigation from the Independent Office of Police Conduct. And if this trial, the retrial, goes on for another year, there is a chance that those 2 officers will have what is commonly known as Damocles' sword hanging over their lives and careers for 2 to 3 years. Now, police officers must behave themselves, and the public expect a certain type of behaviour which is exemplary. Now, there's every chance that that's exactly what will happen. But those officers, every day they go out, and bearing in mind they're armed officers, will have that worry over their head. Well, if this goes the wrong way and I lose my job, I can't pay my mortgage, look after my family, and I've got to find another job. Now, that's no way for a police officer to be. And all the public have seen what I've seen, what you've seen, Mike. Now, those officers acted probably in more restraint than you and I would have done.
Yeah, it's a shocking state of affairs. It's a terrible case, but as I say, thankfully some justice has now been seen to be done as well. Norman Brennan, thanks very much indeed, former police officer and director of the Law and Order Foundation. Got this from somebody who doesn't give a name, unfortunately. Morning, Mike. Whilst we are celebrating the Lionesses for football, England is sinking. I'm 56, and I think in 20 years we'll be unrecognisable as a nation. Trump is laughing at Starmer. It's like he's trying to herd cats. I'm ashamed to be British. Bulldog spirit, nah. Churchill and Thatcher are probably turning in their graves. And once again, Susan says, we as a village all club together to contribute to provide food for the underprivileged in our village. And how does that make us feel when Starmer does that for the illegal immigrants? Well, that's a good question. You do wonder. Let's get a voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. Do you think on the weekend, Mike, me and you should go on a boat to France? Just, get on one of these boats, have a couple of life jackets, how many hours it takes, and then bingo, mate, our life will be sorted, so we don't have to bother going to work ever again. What an absolute joke, Mike.
I know, absolutely ridiculous, incredibly ridiculous. A bit of breaking news for you this morning as well. GPs are threatening winter strikes, apparently. They want a piece of the action. Leaders of the British Medical Association's GP committee have warned Wes Streeting that they will consider re-entering a dispute this autumn if their demands are not met. Isn't it marvellous? 7:38.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:39. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10, of course. Dave in Aberdeen says, oh no, we've done that one already. Maybe Trump could spare J.D. Vance for a while, says Joanna from Salisbury. He could sort out our illegal, legal, irregular migration out. Well, he really could, couldn't he? Because that's the point about J.D. Vance. He speaks very clearly, he speaks very plainly, and whatever he does say appears to be more accurate than anything that comes out of the mouths of this Labour government. Let's talk now to Asher Fredman, who is former Israeli Strategic Affairs official and Executive Director of the Misgav Institute for National Security. Asher, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you too.
We awake this morning to some bad news for Keir Starmer, because he likes to live by the law, as Keir Starmer likes to think he's a sort of international legal expert, a human rights lawyer. But a letter signed by 40 members of the House of Lords said that a Palestinian state would not meet the criteria for recognition as it was set out in the Montevideo Convention, a treaty signed in 1933. And Starmer's suggestion right now seems to be getting pilloried from almost all corners of the civilized world.
Prime Minister Starmer's decision is so incredibly counterproductive to the very goals that he himself has said is guiding his foreign policy. You know, he's declaring one thing but doing the exact opposite. He's sending a clear message to Hamas that don't agree to a ceasefire, don't agree to the end of the war, don't release the hostages, and if you do all that, you'll get a reward from the UK. And that is so counterproductive, especially because as the members of the House of Lords pointed out, the idea of a Palestinian state is a fiction. It's more than likely that Hamas will take over the Palestinian Authority as well. So they'll be in charge in Gaza and in the West Bank as well.
Yeah.
And rather than putting pressure on Hamas to end the war and release the hostages, he's doing the exact opposite. And that's why I think he's gotten attacks from all corners, including from, for example, Emily Damari, a former British-Israeli citizen who was held hostage by Hamas for 471 days and tweeted saying, I know what Hamas is, and you are doing exactly the opposite if the goal is to get the hostages out.
Yes, and when Hamas actually issue a statement thanking effectively the British Prime Minister and saying victory is closer than we expected, I mean, you know, that's absolutely revolting, isn't it?
It is. Look, you know, if Hamas is very excited about what the UK is doing, what France is doing, what Canada is doing, then obviously you know what that means, what the implications are. They're very happy. From their perspective, they don't care about the suffering of people in Gaza. They don't care whether food is getting to them or not. They don't care about the hostages, obviously. Their goal, their number one goal, is to stay in power. And not just in Gaza, they want to take over the Palestinian Authority as well. And Starmer is guaranteeing that they'll stay in power in Gaza and that their popularity in the West Bank will skyrocket.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm reading a story as well about the Arab League yesterday, all 22 Arab League states, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey as well, and the UAE, I think, all saying that Hamas needs to free the hostages, lay down their arms and basically withdraw from Gaza. So we've now got Keir Starmer, who would apparently be holding a different position, a more pro-Hamas position than all of the other Gulf states in the world.
Absolutely, and by the way, obviously Hamas in Gaza is the number one problem, but the Palestinian Authority, the so-called moderate partner, continues to incite terror, continues to pay salaries to terrorists, continues to be riddled by systemic corruption. The President Abbas is now in the 20th year of his 4-year term. The idea that Israel, after October 7th, would give the Palestinian Authority control of the strategic hilltops overlooking Tel Aviv, overlooking Ben Gurion Airport, is really just a non-starter. So this idea, this symbolic virtual signaling, which will have no positive impact on the ground, which will only have a negative impact on the ground, is just, I don't know, incomprehensible from somebody who's looking at the situation.
And even aside from the moral question, you know, the legal question, he seems to have got that wrong as well. And as I said at the top, you know, he prides himself on being this lawyer. You know, that when people talk about Keir Starmer, they say, well, you know, he's not really a politician, he's more of a lawyer. Well, how has he managed to get this legally so completely wrong?
Absolutely. The Palestinian Authority does not meet the standards for a state under international conventions. And also, we saw very clearly in the beginning of this year, terrorists took over parts of the northern West Bank, so parts of the territory that the PA presumably controls. The PA was totally unable to take that back from the terrorists until Israel had to roll in and get rid of the terrorist threat. The idea that they could control Gaza, that Hamas would let them control Gaza, is a total fiction and a fantasy.
And what do you make of this rather strange kind of triumvirate of France, Canada and the UK? It's I'm going to call it a sort of a coalition of the willies, because these are three leaders, right, who don't seem to have a clue about what is right, what is fair. They seem to want to have some kind of legacy, which apparently is going to pander to their sort of left-wing support.
Well, you tell me, when the UK follows France's lead, does that usually lead to good outcomes or to bad outcomes?
Not usually good at all. And Mark Carney, who was possibly one of the worst ever bosses of the Bank of England, who now appears to be in charge of Canada, I mean, I don't even know what he's doing there.
It's really unbelievable. Look, I suppose that there are domestic political pressures because of the voter base that are pushing them in this direction. But then it's this classic case of where taking into short-term domestic political considerations and almost in a childish way throwing fuel into the fire of the Middle East.
Yeah, and it's almost as though they don't understand it at all. Asher, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Asher Fredman there, former Israeli Strategic Affairs official, Executive Director of the Mizgav Institute for National Security. Let's get a voice note from Steve on migration.
Morning, Mike. This is Stephen Hartz. Your previous guest was bang on the money. Powerless. That's how we feel. Completely powerless. Disenfranchised. We vote and vote and vote to drop immigration since David Cameron came to office, lying about dropping immigration down to 10,000 people a year. We have voted for that, for immigration to be brought down, and every election they've just put it up. So what do you do when you run out of options at the ballot box? You feel so powerless, angry, disenfranchised. People will start taking direct action.
people will start taking it, and they are taking it, and it's happening in Hoylake now, up in Liverpool. It's happening in Waterlooville down in Hampshire. It's happening in Epping out in Essex. It's happening in Altrincham up in Manchester. It's happening down in Bournemouth. It's happening at Canary Wharf in London. You know, the list is going to get longer and longer and longer, and the Prime Minister is going to have to answer the question soon. What's he going to do about it? This from Els Bells in Shropshire. How could a sitting Prime Minister totally ignore a nation? How long does he think he will get away with it? People don't like to be ignored, used and abused by power. We are a rebellious lot, and that's exactly what the people of this country have been pushed into. I think that's right, absolutely right. Morning, Mike. Here's an interesting thing. I messaged in a while back about the new Heathrow ride at this Universal theme park. Do you remember that? That was when he got really, really happy that morning, wasn't it? I never thought I'd be opening a theme park. It turns out the ride just got better. Not only does it occasionally burn down, but it occasionally just stops running too, maybe halfway into the sky, says Robert in Hitchin. Yeah, this is the story about the Heathrow airport shutting down, not just Heathrow, but the entire British nation's airspace yesterday for about 40 minutes. Just didn't operate. No planes in the sky at all late yesterday afternoon. 7:47.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We have the chance to deliver for working people, young people, vulnerable people, the poorest in our society.
Yeah, we're getting poorer, by the way. Every single month, I feel as if I'm poorer than I was the month before. So thanks very much indeed for that by Keir Starmer. Laura has got something to say on taxes.
Morning, Mike. Laura in Wiltshire. Like you and millions of others, I paid our self-employed tax for me and my husband yesterday. I was on the phone to a very nice Scottish lady at First Direct, and after we'd gone through the tax reference numbers and the vast amount of money that you've got to cough up, I said to her at the end before I signed off, well, let's hope they spent it well. She actually roared with laughter and said, "Thanks, mate, fly." Anyway, great show, Mike.
Yeah, that's what you get. I mean, at least the tax people have got a sense of humour. We don't really have one left, I'm afraid. But just to cheer everybody up, we thought, because it is a little bit depressing this morning with everything that's going wrong and the absolute destruction of Britain that Keir Starmer seems to be, presiding over. Let's remember our happier times when he decided that he wanted to open a theme park. Remember this?
As you can imagine, when I took over as Prime Minister, people warn you that there are tough days that you're going to face. You know, responsibility for the armed forces, for fixing the NHS, sorting out the economy. So you can imagine that when someone comes and says, would you like to launch and open a theme park? That's a completely different day. And that's why I was so delighted when Mike came to Downing Street yesterday and we were able to shake hands on this deal, this new Universal UK resort and theme park. What a momentous day. What such an important day.
Has anything happened, by the way, since that day? Anybody built anything, or, you know, anything getting any closer to... The last time I saw a story was apparently there were some travellers who had occupied some of the spot that they were going to build it on, and they weren't going to move. Let's get Rachel Reeves' view.
Now, I know that I'm not going to make any apologies for focusing on the numbers. I'm the Chancellor of the Exchequer. But even I will take a moment to also acknowledge that the thrill and the excitement of this theme park for all of the millions of families that will experience it is also a wonderful thing to bring to our country.
Yes. Literally nothing's happened. Nothing at all. I shouldn't really... I could do kind of continue on that Monty Python realm, but you know the next bit I probably can't say. Let's talk to Keith Best now, ex-Chief Executive of the Immigration Advisory Service, former Conservative MP, because we got news this morning from the Office for National Statistics that basically immigration has fueled a record population growth for 2 years in a row. Approximately 1.5 million more people living in this country now since 2023, according to that Office for National Statistics, because we're now pretty much 62 million people living in England and Wales. Quite extraordinary, and it's all down to immigration. Keith, very good morning to you.
Morning, pleasure as always.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone will be that surprised by this. I mean, I've been talking about the rise in population even before it was getting measured, because you could sort of feel that the country was getting a bit busier, certainly in parts of it anyway, certainly in parts of London. And almost all the population increase in the year to June 2024 that we're hearing this morning, 98% due to international migration. So it's a sort of change in the way the population is made up, isn't it?
Yes, and of course it puts enormous pressures on domestic services. I mean, you have to remember domestic circumstances as well. I mean, 100,000, sadly, families break up every year, so suddenly people living in one accommodation need more than one. Successive governments have failed to meet their own targets for building houses, so we're facing a housing crisis, and I'm not sure the government's really got any sensible answers to that at the moment. And of course migration just adds to that. I mean, in fairness, a lot of migrant families tend to have more people living in one unit of accommodation than traditional people living in this country, but it doesn't mitigate the fact that it's just putting pressures on lots of domestic services, whether it's housing, transport or whatever.
Yeah, and the NHS, of course, as well. And that's the problem. But, you know, I mean, what's the government's policy going to be for changing direction? Because it's all very well for them to say we're going to start, you know, deporting people who have come here illegally. We're going to start deporting people who shouldn't be here. But most of these people who are being measured as now living in Britain have come legally, presumably. Oh, we seem to have lost the feed. We'll try and get Keith Best back. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that an awful lot of the 700 and 800,000 people who came the year before would have come legally. Nigel Farage, the Reform UK leader, said this is disastrous for the quality of life for everyone. It puts impossible pressures on public services and further divides our communities. Richard Tice, the deputy leader, said these new mass immigration figures are deeply concerning and have serious implications for the housing crisis, for crime rates and quality of life across Britain. The UK cannot benefit from or cope with such high levels of unvetted, low-skilled immigration. We need economic policies that support British families, encourage higher birth rates and ensure that the interests of the British people come first. You know, and of course Yvette Cooper, who's the Home Secretary, has blamed the Conservative government's failed open borders experiment for net migration that ended up 3 times higher than at the start of the last Parliament. Well, yeah, but the open borders experiment was started surely by her colleague, former Prime Minister Tony Blair, back in 1997. That's when it all started. Let's get a voice note from Perry.
Morning, Mike. I'm absolutely fed up with these politicians thinking that they're really, really clever and that we're really stupid. We all know that in a couple of months' time, Keir Starmer will stand up and say illegal boat crossings have halved under Labour. And the way they've achieved it, Mike, is obvious. What it is now, it's only going to be classed illegal if there's more than 80 people in the boat. This is just like that other useless Prime Minister we had, Theresa May. When she cut the police to the bone and crime soared, she made it not a criminal offence to shoplift as long as it was under 200 quid. Then she could go, oh, shoplifting, illegal shoplifting has dropped by 60% under Conservatives. They all think we're stupid. By making things that are illegal, legal, brings the numbers down.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're doing. It's mad. Yvette Cooper's idea of making it illegal to bring people on a boat if there's a bigger number than a smaller number, it's already illegal to bring them on a boat. You don't have to make it illegal. You make it now twice illegal. Makes no sense. Let's talk to Jane, who's in West Yorkshire. Hello, Jane.
Hi, Ed.
Morning. What can I do for you?
Sorry, my voice. I just wanted to say, sorry, I sound a bit croaky.
Don't worry.
Let me just switch my thing off onto...
Okay.
And I was just saying to your friend who was on the phone that I work with homelessness.
Right.
And it breaks my heart every single day that I've got to say to somebody, we can't give you anywhere to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's not fair, is it?
No, it's really not. Because a lot of those people are really the ones that need the help, aren't they?
Do you know, a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to this guy, and he broke into tears, and he just said to me, "You've been so lovely," but he said, "I've got nowhere to go."
Yeah.
And he's 38 years old, and he works.
Yeah. And he's homeless.
Yeah, because it's split up with his partner.
Right.
And he just said, I'm just absolutely devastated. And he just, for a man at 38 to break into tears.
Yeah.
Mike, it's awful.
I know. It's just dreadful. Jane, listen, thank you. Appreciate your time. It really is awful. And there's so much of this going on around the country. You know, the people in Waterlooville, who we'll talk about coming up in the next hour, who are getting more and more frustrated with what they see going on around them, are just an example of what's going on everywhere, where homeless people who are in need of help can't get the help and they can't get the housing because there isn't any. You know, Keir Starmer told us just a week and a half ago that there was loads of available housing that was going to be turned into accommodation for migrants and possibly for the homeless. But there's no sign of that now. Yesterday he said it was a housing crisis. So you can't have it both ways, can he? 0344 499 1000. Coming up in the next hour, Lady Cunningham's going to join us, Reform's Westminster City Councillor. Also, Ross Clark, columnist in The Sun, who's written about how Trump is absolutely spot on about energy. And also, we'll go down to Portsmouth and find out what's going on down there about the migrant situation. There's problems everywhere in the country when it comes to these hotels and migrant accommodation. We'll be back after the news. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week, the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humsley Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar.
Hello,
and
lady.
unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's Plank of the Week, he's got a sizable plank.
That's a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10. It's Thursday the 31st of July, ladies and gentlemen. We awake to a whole load of different stories from the Heathrow airport air traffic control chaos. It's going to bring days of delays, according to the front page of the Telegraph. Huge knock-on effect in peak holiday season after radar problems, ground flights. Front page of the Sun as well has got that same story. They are a little bit more fancy with the headlines. Ere we go again. Tech glitch grounds UK jets. Holes ruined for thousands of people. Meanwhile, shame on you, Starmer, is what it says on the front page of the Daily Mail, because a freed British Israeli hostage, who is, of course, somebody who's been very critical of Keir Starmer, Emily Damari, led the condemnation of his decision to try and make a plan to recognise a Palestinian state. She basically says that he is enabling Hamas and he's rewarding terror. She accused Keir Starmer of a moral failure and being on the wrong side of history. Hamas, of course, have responded to the Prime Minister's announcement by joyfully proclaiming victory is closer than we expected. Meanwhile, a whole load of very distinguished KCs, lawyers, barristers, King's Counsel, members of the House of Lords have come out and signed a letter to Keir Starmer. 40 members of the House of Lords have done it, basically saying that he may well be in breach of international law if he does actually go ahead and recognise a Palestinian state. Even Sadiq Khan doesn't think it's a very good idea either. So much to talk about this morning, as well as all of the unrest that's happening in various parts of the country due to the migrant hotel situation. The latest, of course, coming in Waterlooville last night down in Hampshire. Here's a local man called Jack leading the crowds.
Did not consent to them, and we did not vote for them. This action to house illegals in Waterlooville is about as undemocratic as it gets. We demand the deportation of every illegal migrant. Send them home! Send them home!
These are ordinary people in Britain, fed up to the back teeth, sick to death of having illegal migrants sort of put onto their streets and brought to their communities, put up in hotels, given free accommodation, which might be a flat, which might be a house, which might be an office in your street, which has been converted. And this is now happening all over the country. Keir Starmer is trying to ignore it. We're going to be speaking to Leyla Cunningham, Westminster City Councillor for Reform. We'll ask her how long he's going to continue to ignore it for, because quite frankly, it's getting out of control. 0344 499 1000 is the number. It's 5 minutes past 8. This is Morning Glory.
We have to return politics to public service. Country first, party second.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Remember that? Mike says Joe in Vietnam. Oh, listening for Vietnam. Unfortunately, we are all sounding like broken records now. You can't actually keep up with what's going on, as every day there is something new to push you over the edge that bit more. I'm very much at the point that Starmer and his cronies know exactly what they're doing. The country is going bankrupt. Britishness is being eroded. The streets are lawless, and it's just getting worse and worse. I truly do despair what's happening. Well, if you're in Vietnam, Joe, you may want to stay there for a bit, because I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. Let's talk to Leyla Cunningham, Westminster City Councillor for Reform UK. Leyla, very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. Good morning.
Yeah, good to see you. This problem, which is sort of gaining credence up and down the country now, has hit Waterlooville. We've got big demonstrations going on still in Epping, out there at the Bell Hotel. Canary Wharf has got it going on. We've got it going on in Altrincham, in Manchester. Bournemouth's got something doing as well. You know, Keir Starmer doesn't seem to want to even acknowledge that these people exist.
Worse, if he does acknowledge them, or if the Labour does acknowledge them, they call them far right or racist, and insult them. And let's be clear, this was done behind closed doors, no consultation, no accountability. It's a stitch up. And to say it's nothing fair about putting migrants into flats that locals can't afford.
Right.
They ignore councils. You know, these are, I read, and I could be wrong, but these are luxury hotels.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is luxury flats.
These are flats that would cost around about £250,000 each, right? And they're in a new block which has just been built, so they're custom made. And supposedly they're going to be given away for free to people. And what I don't understand is if you're taking people out of migrant hotels where they're getting everything for nothing and you're putting them into homes, what else are you going to give them? Because presumably they haven't got any income, so you're going to have to supply them with more money so they can buy food, presumably.
Yeah, and then, you know, your previous caller said they take us for fools. So they're like, we're going to take them out of hotels, we're reducing the number of hotels, but they're just putting them in flats. I couldn't believe Keir Starmer the other day said, oh, there's loads of social housing for women. How dare he? There are thousands on the wait list in Marlborough, in Westminster, all over the country. And he says there are loads of social housing for him. And then, as you said, then he says there's a housing crisis.
Exactly right. He doesn't seem to know which way is up, does he? I mean, there's 1.3 million people in England and Wales waiting for council housing, and there's homeless veterans getting kicked out of accommodation up in Bolton. You know, the priorities all seem to be wrong.
Well, also, I think we're quite unique in that we're the only ones that put them up in hotels and flats. Yeah. Germany, Italy, France, they have detention centres. And I don't think they're particularly luxurious detention centres. And then that's why they're coming here. We need to make it lawful but very uncomfortable stay for them. So the pull factor is not here. Yeah. We're doing the total opposite. And, you know, it was funny when Starmer was in front of President Trump and he said, you know, we're doing everything we can. They're doing the opposite.
Right.
They're moving them to nice. If I was, I'd be like, wow, I get a nice flat or I stay in a four-star hotel. And Mike, it's not only about the housing, don't forget. People get up every day, work hard, leave their family. There's the bills also. Forget the housing as well. There's the bills you have to pay. They're not paying their bills.
No, of course not. And we saw into behind the scenes at a migrant hotel, the Copthorne down in Crawley in West Sussex a little bit earlier this week. We saw some footage of how they're living. And, I mean, they're living rather well. You can see it now. They've got PlayStations, they've got Apple laptops, they've got phones, they've got 3 meals a day provided to them in a sort of catering situation. They've also got 4-poster beds. They've got the ability to smoke if they want in the rooms. There's evidence that some of them are using drugs, and there's weed grinders and evidence of drug paraphernalia. Lots of designer clothes and designer gear, which we don't know whether they bought or they stole. I mean, it's just quite remarkable.
It's remarkable that the government ignore locals, ignore councillors, ignore police, and then they act shocked when people protest and say it's the wrong thing to do. I'm tired of the spin from the Home Office and the government. We want deportations, not dispersals.
Yeah.
We want action. There has been no action. I mean, I think the boat crossings has doubled.
Yeah, well, 900 came yesterday alone.
Everything that Keir Starmer promised, he's done actually the total opposite.
Yeah, exactly right. Migrant numbers for 2025 alone, 25,538.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what boat gang he's smashing. Maybe he should look about smashing the government boat gang. But for me, Mike, a manifesto is a contract. When someone votes for that party, they're signing a contract that they believe what they're promising. And the government's totally breached that contract.
Yeah, it totally has.
For me, that makes them an illegitimate government. When you promise something and you go, you know, it's a contractual obligation in a way, and they've done the opposite.
A lot of people say to me now, should we not have some kind of, you know, commitment from a government, some kind of legal commitment that if you breach almost everything that you've put into your manifesto, or you do all the things that you said you weren't going to do, or you U-turn, or you completely and utterly flip and flop on absolutely everything that you promised. They got in on false pretenses, effectively.
Completely. It's like, you know, it's as if you buy a house and the contract says it's a 5-bedroom house, you know, everything's fine, and then you end up with a 1-bedroom flat.
Yeah, I know. It's absolute madness. Yeah. Meanwhile, I've got a clip for you, Layla, because we spotted this on social media. This is you questioning Sadiq Khan a little while ago.
Mr. Khan, I'm a Westminster City Councillor. I just wanted to ask you on your thoughts on knife crime going up by 60% in the past 2 years. No, this is the Met thing. Knife crime 60% up, and you don't care. Nothing to say? Nothing to say? Nothing to say about knife crime going up? 81,000 phones stolen? Nothing, you don't care? If you want to write in. If you want to write in, they say. Great.
If you want to write in. He was trying to point you in the direction of his knife czar, was he? Was that what he was trying to do?
No, he was trying to point me into the direction of the police. And he doesn't want... That was supposed to be a walkabout. Right. You notice how much security you have, while the rest of us walk without any security and suffer from muggings and knife crime and theft. He walks around with a full security, fully armoured Range Rover, waves from his window and said, mate, take the bike because polluting London. His arrogance is shocking. And I really just wanted him to know. And I wanted to react. I wanted him to look at me and say, listen, I know, and I'm sorry. You know, it's so galling, Mike, that they create an elite force for political dissent. What about an elite force for knife crime?
I know. I mean, he talks about the city of London as though it's a city that he doesn't see. You know, in the same way that Keir Starmer talks about the country as a country that he doesn't see. You know, he's got something in his head as to what London is like, and you know, you can just see footage. You can see any kind of footage every minute of the day. You know, there was the murders in Southwark the other day. There was the guy stabbed to death in Knightsbridge. You know, there are murders going on all the time, and then what you get from the left is, oh yeah, but it's a lot safer in London than it used to be, and then they start quoting, you know, knife statistics at you, and it's just simply not true.
Worse, I mean, Fraser Nelson and Stephen Sacker said I was promoting dangerous rhetoric.
Oh, yeah. Why was that then?
Because I said that crime's going up.
I know.
He quoted a survey, you know, he said 30 years it was much safer. But actually the real data is police recorded data. And I can tell you that over 500,000 knife crimes don't even get reported because youth are scared of retribution. When my son was mugged at knife point, he begged me not to tell the police because the mugger said, if you snitch, I'll kill you.
Right. I know, and that's the awful, terrifying thing. And the same thing for a lot of people having their phones stolen. They don't bother reporting it to the police because the police won't do anything.
Well, you just want a government and a mayor that actually just cares. That's all we want. We just want someone to acknowledge the problem and say, you know what, I'm getting serious. I'm gonna flood the police with knife hotspots because actually a report found that there is around a few streets in Westminster where a lot of knife crime occurs. Why not flood that with police?
Yeah, exactly right. It doesn't seem very difficult, but again, it's almost as though Sadiq Khan, like with the way Keir Starmer's ignoring the protesters, Sadiq Khan sort of ignores his critics, doesn't he? He doesn't, whenever he has mayor's questions, and I know Susan Hall struggles every single week to get a question to him that he'll ever answer, he feels like he doesn't seem to have the right to answer anything.
Mike, did you know that? So he says there's no resources, but 15,000 non-hate crimes were recorded in London.
Yeah.
At the same time that 60% of knife crime went up over 2 years. And I don't know if you saw, but on one of his consultations, and I quote him, he said that I received North Korea-type consultations. People should call me Kim Jong. Who says that? Who compares himself to the worst dictator in the world?
I know.
That's the type of arrogance and entitlement he has. And he's destroying our city, and I'm not going to take it lying down.
No, I'm very glad you're not, and I'm very glad you're out there doing things for the people of this country, because somebody's got to do it. Layla, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Layla Cunningham, Westminster City Councillor from Reform UK. Got a bit more breaking news for you. The Lloyds Bank apparently is down. That's what we're being told. Their app has crashed. Thousands of frustrated Brits on payday today, because of course it's the last day of the month, which is another reason why you wouldn't want this to happen on the 31st of July. But for an awful lot of you who are trying to get onto Lloyds Bank today, apparently it is down. The app has crashed for thousands and thousands of frustrated Brits on payday. If you've got anything to offer on that, if you've got anything that you can tell us about it as to what's going on, by all means let us know. Let's get a voice note from Brian.
Morning, Mike. Brian from South End. I don't know what's going on. You know, this country's an absolute mess, you know, with the air traffic and all. You know, why do people want to come to this country or live here, or why do we want to live here, you know? You go, the whole infrastructure's kaput, it's broken. You know, you got the air traffic strikes or planes grounded. You know, you want anything done. You know, it costs 3, 4, 5 times as much as an original estimate and takes years longer than any other country does it. You know, you got to ask yourself why. You know, I'm a driver, you go in roads. I must do an extra 100 mile or plus a week just through diversions. Every major road, there is roadworks. You know, trains just don't work. You know, the whole place is a mess. You know, and I can't see it getting any better. It's just broken. The whole country is absolutely a wreck. You know, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just getting the end of my tether with it all. You know, if I could leave, I would. I honestly would.
Brian speaks for the nation there. I mean, he's right, isn't he? Don't get me started on the roads. Goodness gracious me. I mean, if you drive around in London, I tell you what, you never know which road they're going to shut. It's literally like some kind of game of whack-a-mole. You know, can you actually get from point A to point B without having to take some ludicrous diversion or find yourself going through some kind of, you know, ridiculous camera? You see the cameras now as well in this country. You know, they've erected all of these weird street cameras, right? Some of them are so high you don't know they're there. And they're basically there to trap you in case you're doing something, you know, while you're driving that you're not allowed to do, like looking at your phone. Of course, most of the time you're not moving in the traffic where these big cameras are because they're put at sort of traffic lights. So I don't know if you've ever been done for one of those camera offences, because it's a relatively new thing. And I'm starting to see them, you know, popping up all over the place. Remember the days when you used to have a speed camera, which was yellow, painted yellow, and it was put there so that you would know that it was an accident hotspot and you should not drive too quickly. And it sometimes worked and sometimes people got done, but you always knew it was there and you knew why it was there. It was a speeding camera, right? And then they started putting them in at traffic lights, and so then that would be a red light camera, which sometimes doubled as a speed camera, but you still knew you had to be careful. Now you've got these mammoth, really, really tall cameras. They're, you know, a million feet in the air. Nobody knows what they're for. And who's paying for it? And where's all the money going? And where does all the money go from the fines that they collect? You know, and that's just one small part of broken Britain. It's extraordinary, isn't it? Here's one from Martin. He says, Mike, you cannot run down Yvette Cooper. Her husband is on ITV today saying that Britain is a better place now and that it's reinforced it because Ellen DeGeneres and James Corbyn have moved here. You couldn't make it up. What on earth is he talking about? He's gone completely bad, hasn't he? GP's on strike, not sure we'll notice the difference, says Andy from Halifax. And Lisa says, obviously another indication that Lord Harmer doesn't know what he's doing either. You would think he would have advised Starmer that Palestine doesn't fit the criteria to be a state. Yeah, well, obviously Harmer and Starmer are both like peas in a pod. They both think that they're cleverer than everybody else, and they both think they can get around the international law if they want to. But according to 40 members of the House of Lords and several other very highly placed KCs and barristers in this country, they've got it wrong. Doesn't surprise me at all. It's coming up to 20 minutes past 8. Coming up, Ross Clark's going to join us. He's written a big piece in The Sun on page 12 today. Trump is dead right on energy. Britain is heading in the wrong direction. Get it? This is Talk.
What an embarrassment for the air traffic control services, and what a huge inconvenience. Even though this has only lasted a matter of minutes, nonetheless the effects, I would imagine, will be felt right across the day and presumably into tomorrow as well.
Very much so. My own sister is sat in a plane in Croatia at the moment, unable to take off because of this. You've got to understand this is the busiest time of year. You've got hundreds and hundreds of flights affected across both Gatwick and Heathrow.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glories, 8 to 22. I'm Mike Graham. This from Sue says, I don't know if this is relevant to today's conversation, but having an early cup of tea whilst waiting for guests to rise in my B&B, gazing out of my window in a very pretty small Scottish town location. What do I see? A blasted Palestine flag and posters in the cranky woman opposite's window. It's been there for months and months. It's proved awkward on occasions, as I hosted some lovely Jewish guests. But what can I do? It's difficult running a small business in the community, but some people's ignorance is off the scale. Keep up the good work. Yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes you just get troubled by some of this stuff, don't you? Ross Clark is here. He's written a column in The Sun today about the debunking by President Donald Trump of Ed Miliband's green policy. Let's remember what Trump said to Keir Starmer this week in Turnberry.
Wind is a disaster.
But in Scotland and across the UK, wind farms...
I know, it's a shame. It's not his fault. I used to tell Alex Salmond, you can take 1,000 times more energy out of a hole in the ground this big. This big. It's called oil and gas. And you have it there, the North Sea. This big, that nobody would even see. You can take 1,000 times more power because the wind is intermittent, it doesn't work, it's extremely expensive. All the windmills are made in China. They used to be Germany and China, now they're mostly in China. They all come out of China. They say that the blades, which are carbon fiber, you can't bury. Oh, okay, you can't bury. What are you going to do, dump them in the ocean someplace? Because they only last a certain period of time. And remember, a windmill has a life of 8 years, especially when they're out in the salty sea and they start to rot and to rust. You're going to have to replace them. It's very hard to replace them. Wind needs massive subsidy. And you are paying in Scotland and in UK and all over the place where they have them, massive subsidies to have these ugly monsters all over the place. They also kill all your birds. You know, they wipe out. You know, it's interesting. If you shoot a bald eagle in the United States, they put you in jail for 5 years. And yet windmills knock out hundreds of them. They don't do anything. You explained that. So it's a very expensive energy. It's a very ugly energy. And we won't allow it in the United States.
So we believe in a mix, and obviously oil and gas is going to be with us for a very long time, and that'll be part of the mix, but also wind, solar.
We believe in a mix, a rich mix. What's he talking about? Ross Clark's here, columnist at The Sun. Ross, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I rather like your intro about you can only imagine that Ed Miliband's been locked in a cupboard for the past few days so that he doesn't get in the way when Donald Trump was making those pronouncements. Because, I mean, Starmer, I've never seen him looking more embarrassed. And he had to, I mean, it's sort of his two interjections, one on his friend Sadiq Khan, and that one there where he says, we believe in a mix. He doesn't believe in a mix. He believes in Ed Miliband having complete control of everything, which means no oil and gas at all, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm very worried about the welfare of Ed Miliband. I mean, where is he? I mean, Trump's remarks there are a complete red rag to Miliband normally. I mean, he'd be out on the airwaves sort of denouncing them and saying how wind farms are going to save us 300 quid a year and so on. But he's had absolutely nothing to say. You can only imagine he's been silenced in order not to spoil Starmer's relationship. Yeah. Trump. But Trump is, I mean, he's essentially right. I mean, he said some things there which aren't true. I mean, wind farms last a bit longer than 8 years and so on. But, you know...
Yeah, but they don't last forever, which is what we're told.
No, they don't last
sort of
forever. I think 20, 25 years is about what you get out of wind.
But what the Green Brigade tell us is that, you know, once you put them in, you never have to do anything else. But that's obviously not true either.
No, it isn't. And I mean, the particular problem with building wind farms in Scotland, which the SNP have done, you know, with abandon in recent years, both offshore and onshore, and sacrificing one of their greatest assets in the process, their scenery. We've got to the stage where the wind farms, well, they either generate nothing on some days, but on other days they generate so much wind that the national grid, so much electricity, sorry, that the national grid simply can't cope. And last year energy consumers were forced to pay £1.5 billion in what are called constraint payments to wind farm owners to compensate for them for the fact that they have to turn their turbines off and can't feed it into the grid because we haven't got the wires to bring the electricity southwards where the demand is for it. And, and Ed Miliband is as guilty as this as is the SNP, sort of just incentivising the construction of wind and solar farms before the national grid is actually able to cope.
Right, and still with what Keir Starmer said there, that there will always be oil and gas for a long time. I don't know if he really believes that, whether he actually means that, because basically what he said is that we're going to import our oil and gas from Norway, who are getting it out of the North Sea approximately sort of 25 feet away from where we would be getting it from, but we're not getting it from there anymore because we don't think it's sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, what Keir Starmer said there, oil, gas will be with us for decades to come. I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, whatever practical transition you might imagine to clean energy, it's going to involve oil and gas in the short to medium term. But the trouble is the government policy is pretty well shutting down North Sea gas and oil now. They're refusing licenses for new extraction, and at the same time they are taxing out of existence the existing fields. We've got this windfall tax, which is now imposing 78% tax on oil and gas companies. I mean, that was introduced by the Conservatives, as you remember, in 2022, when the oil and gas companies were making great windfalls. You might remember Chairman of CEO of BP saying, it would sort of a license to print money and so on. But, oil and gas prices have come down a lot since 2022. The windfalls aren't being made, yet the windfall tax has got even steeper. So,
and BP, of course, have practically gone under thanks to their drive for net zero and to go green, where they suddenly bizarrely announced, we're not going to explore any more oil and gas fields. We're just going to completely produce a renewable energy. And as a result, the company's practically gone under.
Well, it certainly retreated on its green energy strategy. Remember the days there's going to be BP was supposed to stand for Beyond Petroleum and so on. Well, it's going back on that rather sharply now.
It's going BP back to petroleum.
Profits aren't there to be made.
Well, that's the thing. And what about all these jobs that Starmer keeps telling us are going to be produced? And Miliband says the same. Tens of thousands of jobs in the green energy industry. Where are they?
In China, basically. I mean, there is a great number of jobs being created, but they're not in Britain. But here's a little statistic. The International Renewable Energy Agency sort of tots up the green jobs in renewable energy around the world. Britain has 0.3% of those jobs, yet we've got 1% of the population, and we've got, one of the most sort of, call it progressive net zero policies in the world. So, I mean, we keep being told if we get ahead, it'll create this bonanza in jobs, create new industries and so on. Well, the opposite is happening. We are losing out, and one of the reasons we're losing out, of course, is high energy prices. The carbon levies and energy policy has given us the highest industrial energy prices in the world, and that's one of the factors sending our remaining manufacturing industry abroad.
Yeah, it is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, is there any likelihood that because of the way that Donald Trump has been so vociferously against this green energy business that Starmer will sort of attempt to water it down a bit?
Well, I can't really see it happening in the near future. I mean, you heard Starmer there was he's slightly pushing back on what Trump was saying, but I mean he's sort of just trying to be polite in Trump's company. But no, Miliband is sort of seems to be winning the soul of the cabinet for his energy policy. I remember a few months ago, Tony Blair, the Tony Blair Institute, published this paper saying it's rather foolish for Britain to try and be the world leader in net zero. Is going to cost us jobs and wealth and so on. And he was sort of shut up by Starmer, really, and Miliband's view was allowed to prevail. So we've got this rather sort of foolish policy now, which is destroying jobs, destroying our wealth, and not really doing very much for the planet either.
No. What an absolute and utter mess that they've created. Ross, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Ross Clark, columnist at The Sun today. Trump is dead right on energy. Britain is heading in the wrong direction. Absolutely they are. And where is Ed Miliband? Where has he gone? Not that I particularly miss him, I have to say. I don't particularly, care to see him anytime soon. But he certainly disappeared. They keep him on a very short leash, it would seem. Let's find out what people are saying in the Sun letters page. And a lot of people getting exercised about the Palestine story. Keir Starmer is no longer the leader of the Labour Party. He's a puppet of the backbenchers, says Granville from Lancashire. He has already caved in over the benefits row, but recognising Palestine as a state is inexcusable, as it will be ruled by Hamas thugs and will leave Israel even more vulnerable. It is claimed Hamas use their own people as barricades and steal aid food. So our Prime Minister should not take any stance that could be seen as rewarding terrorists. Well, a bit late for that, I'm afraid. Jean in West Yorkshire says, Keir Starmer's threat to recognise a Palestinian state is shameful. Hamas invaded Israel and committed heinous acts, and Israel retaliated. But this seems to have been brushed aside by our Prime Minister. Benjamin Netanyahu is right to say it appeases Hamas. And there's lots of other similar type letters in The Sun today. We'll hear more from many of you throughout the course of this show. Let's get a voice note first from Gary on Starmer.
Morning, Mike. It's Gary from Canterbury. It's funny, isn't it? JD Vance sees it. Trump sees it. Everyone sees it. The only person who doesn't see it is bloody Keir Starmer. I mean, he just ignorant to the fact that all of Britain is just sick of this, and it's just unbelievable that he doesn't see it, despite everyone saying it. I mean, God knows what his PR people are doing or his advisors are doing. I mean, these people in the background must be worse than him. And yet you've got James Price, who he sees it, and he's the one who talks more sense. But great show, Mike. Keep it coming, and have a great day.
Gary, thank you very much indeed. We will do our best. What can we say? Any government that puts illegal immigrants above veterans should hang their heads in shame, says Brian in Worthing. And Steve says, dragging our country towards the wrong side of history and recognising a genocidal state partly run by a terrorist group should be something that's put before Parliament, if not the whole country. It's the latest act of our desperate, incompetent laughingstock of a Prime Minister who is endangering our safety. Well, that's a very strong message, and I think a lot of people would agree with it. A couple of pieces of breaking news. GPs are threatening winter strikes. They say to Wes Streeting that if they do not get their demands met, they will be re-entering a dispute in the autumn. So that means it'll be even harder to see a GP. And also Lloyds Bank is apparently down. Their app crashed for thousands of frustrated Brits who are on payday watch, waiting to see if they can get hold of their money. Well, not if you've got an account with Lloyds Bank. We'll keep you updated. If you've got any info on that, do let us know. It's 8:35.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 8:37. Neil says this: who's going to finance the Gaza rebuild? France, the UK and Canada recognise the state. It opens us up to financial liability, doesn't it? Well, yeah, maybe it does. And Marvin says this illegal migrant situation is absurd. I got a letter from my former council in Croydon inquiring if I still want to remain on the housing list after waiting for just 18 years. I still can't secure a social house, yet these individuals can arrive here and obtain housing or apartments without having contributed. I've worked my entire life, had to leave London, and am now in social housing in a new city, says Marvin. Yeah, it is absolutely insane, isn't it? Absolutely bonkers mad. But if you think that's mad, wait till you hear the next story. This involves John Edwards, an independent councillor in Sandhurst. He was basically Sandhurst Town Council. He questioned in April why 300 Afghans have been housed in a hotel in Bracknell in Berkshire when many of our own veterans remain homeless. It's since emerged they were brought to Britain, of course, as we know, after a list of names of Afghans who had applied to come to the UK was leaked. But another borough councillor said they reported Councillor Edwards to the police for stirring up hatred with far-right propaganda about the hotel. Absolutely incredible. John, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
This is quite remarkable, isn't it? Because we've got this worry now, a lot of people have in this country, that, you know, there's some elite police squad watching a social media post to see whether you make anything anti-migrant. You asked a simple question, which was deemed to be anti-migrant, was it?
Yeah, it's really frightening, Mike. And I don't say this lightly, but democracy and free speech in this country are under attack, and I'm experiencing it directly. So, yeah, I'm a local councillor, and the Bracknell Forest Council are trying to silence me, and they're doing it through isolation. They're keeping me away from certain information. They're intimidating me by saying, well, councillors are, by saying I've been reported to the police, and they've weaponised the complaints process against me. So their complaints process has been totally weaponised because they're going against their own guidance, the local government association guidance, natural justice, and Article 10, which is my right to freedom of expression. Yeah. And they did this all because in April, I raised concerns about hundreds of Afghans arriving under the Afghan resettlement programme to Bracknell. And they're getting put up in a 4-star hotel with all their food and bills paid for. And then they're getting what's called wraparound care and move on support. And I thought, this isn't right. This isn't the type of support that my residents will get. So I raised questions. I raised questions about, will it impact housing? Will it impact education? Will it impact health? And throughout this, I always maintained that the people arriving needs to be treated with dignity and respect and nothing less. And this was all about policy. But because I did that, Labour councillors have said they've reported me to the police. They've accused me publicly of inciting racial hatred, inciting hate. These are serious criminal offences. And then, of course, Bracknell Forest has now weaponised the complaints process against me by launching a formal complaint against me behind closed doors. Now, this
did you, by the way, did you get any answers to the question in the first place?
Well, yes. I mean, not from them. I mean, Bracknell Forest Council repeatedly said it won't impact the housing list. It won't impact education. But now secret Whitehall briefing papers have come out, which are briefing ministers, which confirm that it will impact education, it will impact housing, and it will impact, things like health and education. I've also checked, did Bracknell Forest Council check any of the vetting that was done? And no vetting was checked. Not one borough councillor. I'm a town councillor. None of the borough councillors checked this. Okay, this is why I felt compelled to speak out. They never checked the level of vetting. Now we know that people who were previously rejected for sexual and violent crimes have been allowed in under this scheme. Taliban members are in on this scheme. And one source, Afghan official source, said they have British troops' bloods on their hands. It's hard to get your head around how scandalous this actually is. We are housing Taliban members, allegedly, in hotels at our expense while we have veterans homeless. And I am the one now being silenced because my case represents a feeling, as you say, in the UK, where people feel too frightened to raise concerns about these type of things or where our money is being spent. You know, it's not that I'm scrutinised. It's not how I've scrutinised this policy, Mike. It's what policy I'm scrutinising that's led to silencing.
Right, and because in April, of course, as you quite rightly say, you were spotting something that nobody else knew about. That the fact that, and I've spoken to several people in different parts of the country who have noticed something similar. back around about that time. And funnily enough, we now know, for example, last year, with some of the troubles after Southport, that all of the areas, according to a cabinet briefing document, all of the areas where there was, unrest and the police were having to be drafted in, were all areas where an awful lot of Afghan people had been put, much against the better judgment of this country, and without the public being told. So you actually were a forebearer of this story without really knowing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just raising questions. So maybe that is why I was silenced so much. But yeah, even now we know the truth has come out. I'm still being silenced, and I've been now. It isn't just me, Mike. The Daily Mail's reporting it, the Telegraph's reporting it, the Sun's reporting it. talkTV, GB News, but also the Free Speech Union has also picked this up and are backing me. Am I right? They have called it a chilling example of democratic suppression, and they have been so important to me because they are the only people who have actually backed me. And if anyone believes in free speech and democracy, quite frankly, please check them out and give them support because they are so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's happened in terms of the police report? Have the police talked to you? Have they come to see you?
Well, it now transpires actually because in now I've gone public. In Labour's desperation to cling on to some kind of credibility, they've come up with this amazing statement that actually they're telling residents that it's all fake news because actually this councillor never reported me to the police, even though she publicly said she did on Facebook. So that raises more serious questions because surely she only lied to residents that I've been reported to the police to intimidate me or to intimidate other residents. And if Labour knew that it hadn't been done, why didn't they tell me for my own mental well-being? And why didn't they perpetuate a lie to residents?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Well, listen, John, we'll keep an eye on it, and if we can do anything, do let us know. But you're in capable hands of the Free Speech Union, so you'll probably be good. You'll be in good place. Thank you very much indeed. John Edwards, independent councillor from Sandhurst, reported to the police, although they're now trying to deny doing it, because he asked a question about some Afghan migrants. Meanwhile, down, of course, in Waterlooville, things have kicked off a little bit. Here's one of the local men, Jack, leading the crowds last night.
We did not consent to them and we did not vote for them. This action to house illegals in Waterlooville is about as undemocratic as it gets. We demand the deportation of every illegal migrant. Send them home! Send them home!
Send them home is the chant, and that, of course, started last night, all because word spread that there was going to be some migrants moved in to a housing project, which has only just been built, I believe. We're going to speak to George Madgwick now, councillor of Portsmouth Independents. George, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. And no longer an independent. I'm actually Reform UK now.
Oh, are you? Excellent.
That all changed last week.
Oh, yes. Well, there we are. You were there last night. Tell us a bit about it. We've seen some footage, so we kind of know what the atmosphere seemed to be like. But a lot of local people not very happy.
A significant amount of local people. I mean, some estimates have it up to 2,000. Personally, I had it about 1,500, but some people have 2,000. But this is a mix of people. People often think that it's just these far-right thugs. That's what the left always label it at, and that's just not true. There was a mix of children, the women, elderly people, disabled. There was a group of a disabled forum with lots of people in wheelchairs and stuff enjoying it. And unlike a lot of protests that are labelled as certain things, this one was full of singing and dancing and chanting. It was really energetic, really positive, and went on without a problem.
Yeah, absolutely right. Quite a lot of police there, though, and I've seen some footage where, there was a bit of toing and froing, I suppose would be the best way to describe it. I'm not quite sure what you can tell us about that.
Yeah, so it was all going swimmingly. There was no Antifa, no stand up to racism, which was good because that's usually the time that problems start at these protests when they cause it. Yeah. And randomly at some point, some very brave gentleman turned up with a sign, which I think you've got on your screen now, and held up a sign saying asylum seekers welcome here. At that point, there was a 20-second scuffle, if you like. No one got touched. The police ushered them away, which is what you're seeing on your screens now. The police ushered them away, and that was that. It went back to the protest about 20 seconds later. It was absolutely fine. But that's the thing with these protests, though, Mike, and I've said this, and I've screamed this from the rooftop for years, is that a lot of these protests are always peaceful, they're always respectful, until you see these masked men turn up with refugee signs antagonising the crowd, and that's what usually causes a reaction, and that's what did not happen in Waterlooville.
Right. And it was a relatively spontaneous sort of action, wasn't it? Because I don't think until it really happened, certainly the media weren't aware of it until it started hitting social media and that kind of thing. And the problem is all about this housing project, right? This group of flats that I think is supposedly being commandeered for illegal migrants. I mean, did you get any satisfaction on what's actually going on with regard to that?
Yeah, I mean, so it was announced by the Home Office they were planning to take over 19 flats that are valued at £250,000 each, roughly.
Right.
35 migrants smack bang in the middle of the town centre that backs onto a school. And it dramatically unsettled local residents, really, really did. And that's why it spread so quickly, because you had parents at the local schools sharing the information on WhatsApp groups, and all of a sudden it turns from a small gathering into an incredibly large protest. But this is where it's unacceptable, Mike, where you get unchecked, undocumented people literally placed in the middle of a high street in a busy town centre next to a school. It's not good, it's not safe, and that's what the people of this community went and stood up for.
Yeah, and so what's likely to happen in the future then? Because a lot of these protests are spreading around the country. You know, we've obviously got the one in Epping, there's one in Canary Wharf now, there's one in Altrincham in Manchester, there's now Waterlooville, there's one I think in Diss. In Norfolk, there's another one in Aldershot, there's another one in Bournemouth. You know, it's sort of a nationwide trend now where people are just getting out and telling the authorities what their views are. Is there going to be another protest tonight?
Not tonight that I know of. However, there is going to be one this Friday. You've got photos on your screen there from the Portsmouth protest last week, and I believe this Friday there's going to be one in Portsmouth again outside the Royal Beach Hotel, where you may know there's been an alleged rape charge in the city recently. So there is going to be one this Friday. But you're right, they're popping up across the country. This is no longer an isolated issue. This is a widespread issue that Labour are not getting control of. They're not getting on top of this in any capacity. And only yesterday we had another 900 of these people shipped in. Where are they going? And the people of this country, these local communities, women, children are getting concerned, and they're finally using their voice. And the fact they're doing it in a peaceful, energetic way is really, really good. But the Labour government have got to listen. The Conservatives made a complete error on this for 14 years. Labour promised in their manifesto that they would resolve it, they would sort it. They have not. They are not. They are failing the country once again. And people have now had enough. And they've got to do something.
Yeah, I think so. George, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. George Madgwick, the councillor for Reform down in Portsmouth, was at the Waterlooville protest last night. And as I say, there's more and more of that coming. And Keir Starmer is going to have to be more and more capable of actually acknowledging, first of all, that it's happening, and second of all, what's he going to do about it? Because at the moment, he's pretending it's just not there. Let's get a voice note from Angie.
Hi, morning, Mike. Angie from Portsmouth. Another great show. Do you know the most frustrating thing I think that people feel at the moment is, yes, there's nothing they can do about it, but it's also the comprehension. If somebody were to come on the show and explain why all these idiotic ideas actually make sense, maybe people would question it, or maybe people would think, oh, well, that maybe there's something I haven't seen. But we get nothing. We're just obfuscated with dribble, and people don't understand why we're being punished against the lives of people that shouldn't be here, you know, and it's going in every part of our community. It's just the unfairness and the fact that they don't have any reason for it. It's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, Andy. You're absolutely right. Thanks very much indeed for that. One here from Melvin. It says, Trump has stated that a trade deal with Canada is now very hard as it announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. The UK trade deal is perhaps now on hold as well. And one from Stuart who says the legal migration figures for last year were 900,000 that came in and 400,000 that left. Labour decided this was a 500,000 net success, but the 500,000 who left were mainly high-educated, high taxpayers who were replaced with low-educated tax burdens. Well, that's part of the problem as well, isn't it? And that, of course, is what we'll be checking up on over the course of the next few weeks and months. This is Morning Glory. Coming up next, we're going to get some top tips for Glorious Goodwood, which is going on. The Sun's Templegate tipster is going to join us.
The Pacific tectonic plate, which is a huge, dense piece of rock, which is being forced underneath the continental plate, the Asian continental plate, at 3 inches a year. Now, that might not sound very much, but with the mass that's being pushed there and the build-up of tension means that in this region, this part of the Pacific Rim of Fire, where this happens, you get build-up of incredible tensions and you get a sudden release.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:54. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock when Julie Hartley-Brewitt will be here. Glorious Goodwood very much underway, and I'm delighted to say we've got Steve Mullen, Templegate's Sun Racing top tipster, to speak to in a moment. Just another bit of breaking news for you, though. We've had GPs threatening to strike over the winter months, according to leaders of the British Medical Association's GP committee. They've warned the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, that they will consider re-entering a dispute this autumn if their demands are not met. Well, now we've got the nurses joining in. The nurses apparently said just now, this morning, they expected to reject the government's pay offer of 3.6%, leading to a prospect of more NHS strikes. So, you know, we've had the junior doctors. They say they're going to be striking probably all the way through till Christmas. You've got the GPs on strike, nurses on strike. I mean, there's going to be nobody left, is there? You know, paramedics, any chance? Or ambulance drivers, maybe? Any chance you can have a conference with one of them? The cleaners, I don't know, porters, you know, the management. Absolutely incredible. Ridiculous. Mad. Anyway, we'll keep you abreast of all of that. Also, Lloyd's banking app seemed to be a bit down this morning as well. Some of you saying that yours are working fine. Well, not everybody's are. So if you've got the info on that, do let us know. 0344 499 1000. Glorious Goodwood underway. Let's talk to Steve Mullen, Templegate, to see what he's got to say for today and what you might want to put some money on. Very good morning to you, Steve.
Morning, mate.
Good to see you. How's the week gone so far for you? Are you having a good one?
Yeah, not so bad. I mean, yesterday was a bit interesting. There was a 150 to 1 winner of the big race, so unfortunately I didn't have 50p each way on that one, but it's not been so bad. It's always a good week down on the Downs.
Yeah, and the weather's not been too bad. There's a bit of rain coming today, I think, so it might be a little softer, I suppose. What have you got for us on today's menu?
Yeah, the best bet today goes in the 155 at Goodwood, obviously. It's a horse called Coppell.
Okay.
Trained by Clive Cox, was third in the Coventry Stakes at Royal Ascot last time, which is one of the top 2-year-old races of the season.
Right.
I think the horse will improve for that run. And this is actually a fairly easier race than that one. Around 4 to 1, 9 to 2, if you can get that. Okay. I think the trip will be fine, and I think he'll give us a good run. Coppell in the 155.
Okay, very nice. And Whirl, you're writing about that in the paper today as well.
Yeah, I mean, Whirl's a real class act in the Nassau Stakes. Already went close in the Oaks at Epsom earlier in the season, and then ran really well, winning a Group 1 over in Ireland last time. I mean, Aidan O'Brien, you can't go far wrong following him in big races. Ryan Moore's up. Not a fantastic price, but I think very hard to see anything getting in front of it today.
Yeah, and is that part of a treble, would you say, those first two?
Yeah, those two. That's the Nat Coppell. I'd say Whirl is the next best, and then for the treble, I'll go for Merchant in the 230.
Okay.
Really nice horse. Another one that won at Royal Ascot last time. That was a really good handicap there. The horse he beat there nearly won the Irish Derby next time, so that shows what a good race it was. I think he's got more to come, and I think, again, he's not a huge price, but as part of the treble, I think Merchant in the 230 looks a decent bet.
Okay, and what would you get if you for Coppell, Whirl and Merchant?
All three of them, it would be around the 20 to 1 mark, if they all come good.
All right, well, that sounds like a great way to spend a Thursday afternoon. I thank you very much indeed. Steve Mullen, Templegate, with the Sun's top racing tips there. Coppell in the 155, Whirl 305 as the next bet, Merchant 230. Do them all as a treble, you get about 20 to 1 for that. This from Lewis. He says, I'm sick of this country. My disabled daughter's waiting 5 years for an adapted house. The council don't care as we're privately renting and we're not homeless. I'm off to France next week and getting a dinghy back. A lot of people are talking about that. Mark in Stratford says, Mike, this idea of Starmer's to recognise Palestine as a state just shows how clueless he is. Aside from being a completely stupid and offensive decision, you'd think they'd have checked all the legal ramifications beforehand. Totally incompetent at every turn. I know, it seems mad, doesn't it? This one from D in North Yorkshire. Morning, Mike. Here's an interesting thing about the NHS appointments issue. I got a positive result from a test I had that could indicate cancer present in my body. I was called by my GP, who said I can get an urgent appointment to have it checked out. She asked me, do I want to go ahead with that appointment or do I want to leave it? I couldn't believe she said that. Obviously, I said, of course I do. I wonder how many more this is happening to. Well, this is the other thing, isn't it? They keep boasting about the number of appointments that they've made. Every time you see Keir Starmer, he's added another 500,000 appointments to the list. Last time it was 4.5 million. I guarantee you by next week it'll be 5.5 million. And everybody knows what's actually going on is they're not really getting an appointment that they can actually go and meet anybody for. They're getting an appointment and then they're getting that appointment completely and utterly broken and cancelled. It's absolutely ridiculous. The problem for us here is that we just can't get to see doctors and you just can't get things done. Coming up in the next hour, Dan Hodges is going to join us, commentator from the Mail on Sunday. He's written another excoriating piece about Keir Starmer and his ridiculous method of U-turning, which is now going to be the one thing that defines his premiership. We'll be back with Dan after the news. We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently are going to build it in Bedfordshire. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks. Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade. All the people driving their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going around that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth for this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a 5 in the pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed. Very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the Parks Hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. What about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner. Says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine a Scouser say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour go
across the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10. Lots and lots of you getting in touch about all the protests that are going on around the country, whether it's Waterlooville, whether it's Norwich. I just got told there's one going on, whether it's Diss in Norfolk, whether it's actually Altrincham in Manchester, whether it's down in Bournemouth, whether it's in Canary Wharf here in London, whether it's in Essex, of course, where the Epping Hotel, the Bell Hotel, is supposedly going to be closed down, or at least that's what the residents would like it to be. This is a massive story. It's growing every single day. Waterlooville we've just heard from as well. That kicked off last night when it became clear that an awful lot of local residents were up in arms about a plan to house a lot of illegal migrants into a new sort of housing complex where flats would sell for as much as £250,000 each, but they were going to be given away to people who have come here illegally and who are living here illegally. Chance of send them home is what people are hearing and what people are now saying up and down the country. They're fed up to the back teeth of paying their taxes and getting nothing for it, while they watch people coming into the country from all sorts of places abroad, which are not exactly, shall we say, compatible with British culture, and having a life of Riley, living high on the hog. It's absolutely outrageous. We're going to talk to Dan Hodges coming up in this hour. He's got a big piece in the Mail today saying the U-turn is becoming Starmer's defining feature, with Palestine and him caving in on it unlikely to be his last capitulation. As somebody said to me just a few weeks ago, Keir Starmer is now more like a person that lives at 10 Downing Street rather than the Prime Minister. He just happens to occupy that particular address. Also, breaking news this morning, nurses are now expected to join GPs with a threat to strike. They've been told to reject their 3.6% offer, which was made by Wes Streeting, and leading to the prospects of more of them going on strike later on in the year. GPs are also threatening winter strikes, saying that if they don't get their demands met, they're all out. So literally there's nobody left working in the NHS apart from the people cleaning the floors. Absolutely ridiculous. The Lloyd's apps, by the way, are also down in this hour. We're waiting to hear some confirmation from the banking sector that that's going to be up and running soon. And we're still taking the fallout in all sorts of ways from yesterday's outage at the airports, where British airspace was actually closed down for about 40 minutes. Literally no planes could take off or land. No planes could arrive here from points east, west, north and south. People were being diverted to Schiphol, to Frankfurt. I mean, it's absolute shambles. Why can't we seemingly do anything right in this country? That's the question. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. from Alison in Billericay. Mike, they want to build 300 homes on farmland near my house, as well as thousands more locally, which will completely destroy the area. Half of the houses around the corner will be social housing because the average house is over 550,000 in the area. I'm worried who they actually will move in, because I bet it's not young local people struggling to afford the mortgages and rent. For them, no. Not to mention there are just aren't the schools, surgeries and general infrastructure to support it. Well, this is the other big problem about this plan, you know, to build loads and loads of houses all over the place. Keir Starmer can't seem to make up his mind about whether there's loads of houses available. 700,000 or so, he said, a couple of weeks ago at the liaison committee. And then yesterday, he put out a tweet to say that we were in a housing crisis. So, which is it? One here from Lorraine who says, Mike, over Waterlooville, am I correct that the government are putting 35 illegal immigrants into 19 flats, each worth £250,000? So 2 illegal criminals to each luxury flat, costing roughly £125,000 each. Meanwhile, my son is serving this country and has no hope of buying his own home. How about the government give free flats to the Brits who are desperate to get on the housing ladder? It's an absolute national disgrace, and Starmer does not represent me. Well, I think a lot of people are saying that right now, even as we speak. Let's talk to Dan Hodges, who is, of course, commentator at the Mail on Sunday. Big piece today saying the U-turn is becoming Starmer's defining feature. Dan, a very good morning to you.
Morning.
Now, before we get going, we've got a little gift for you. And this wasn't my idea, before you give me a hard time. We've had a look back at some of the things that you've been saying about this government since the beginning, right? Following the horrendous record of Keir Starmer. Even I haven't seen this, so we're just going to play it out now and have a look. See what we get.
Well, you didn't like it when we started off, but as you can see, what we're doing is starting to work. I mean, let's just wait and see. I mean, if you remember last time I was on, I think it was before the budget, and I was saying to you, let's just be a little bit careful here. Some of the polls show them relatively stable. I think there was a poll over the weekend actually showed Labour moving up.
I've been getting calls from people since last Wednesday who have been telling me that they're now in a very, very bad place, particularly independent traders, people who run small businesses in this country, who are the backbone of this country, and many of them don't work for big companies, don't work for the public sector, don't get a pay slip, but do work bloody hard for their money, who are now going to be worse off. And those are the people that they should worry about.
Well, as I said, we'll see. So in the short term, we could actually see a bit of growth coming out of this budget.
But anyway,
let's just wait and see where it goes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I think that's
with greatest respect to people calling in, we're not seeing that at the moment in the opinion polls, and that's not the feedback I'm getting from people in Westminster. Whatever you think about the Labour Party, as a rule, its MPs are not roaming the country punching their own constituents. So we've got to be clear about that.
Well,
but
that's good. So you found a sort of chink of light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, there's so much in there, but it's been a bit of a roller coaster year, hasn't it? And now here we are. You're writing about Keir Starmer pretty much every week, saying how useless he is.
Yeah, I mean, like you saw. I mean, I tried to give Keir Starmer and the government a chance, and I'll still try and give them a chance. I mean, they've only been in power for a year, but what can you say? What can you say? I mean, again, here we are this morning. As you said, I've got another piece in the Daily today. And again, I seem to say this every week I come on. I just don't know what Keir Starmer thinks he's doing.
No,
I don't know what he thinks he's doing with this whole recognition of Palestine policy, where, as just about everybody is pointing out, it's a policy that literally rewards Hamas and rewards terrorists. And we literally had a situation yesterday where Hamas formally put out a statement praising Starmer, welcoming his announcement, saying it was a victory for them, and victory was much closer than even they had thought. And then a few hours later, you've got a statement from the hostage families saying this policy is actively risks putting the lives of our relatives at risk.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they said it was a moral failure as well.
Well, firstly, it's obviously a moral failure. Secondly, it's a political failure because, again, Starmer is getting criticism from all sides. I mean, if you see the reaction to the announcement, even people on the left who are pro-Palestinian are attacking the announcement.
Yeah.
But
Well, even Sadiq Khan said it was a bad idea.
Exactly. People, relatively moderate people on the left, like Sadiq Khan, are attacking it from that flank. I mean, incredibly, I was told yesterday by a minister that the Israeli government weren't even informed of the move. Remember, this is one of our key strategic allies. They weren't even informed of the move until Keir Starmer stood up. And as I say in the piece today, he wrote an article, I think it was in the Times it was either Thursday or Friday, in which he broadly set out the principles around recognition, but that was widely perceived as being a relatively balanced piece, and was balanced between requirements on the Israelis and requirements on Hamas. But then over the weekend, my understanding is he was basically ambushed by his cabinet ministers, who said, no, we've got to go much further and we've got to go much farther on this, which is, and once again, it's the pattern we keep seeing with him. Keir Starmer is frankly not in control of the government. His MPs, members of the cabinet, and outside events are governing government policy at the moment.
Absolutely right. And of course, I've been saying this since the beginning of this week, that, it all kind of started last weekend when he started tweeting about Gaza, and he started talking about, how terrible the famine was, and he started getting stuck into all of that. And then all of the sort of unrest happened, the protests out in Epping were going on. There was trouble at Canary Wharf. There was Britannia Hotel being taken over. He didn't address any of that on his social media feed, which is usually a pretty good indicator of where he's wanting to spend his time. He then sort of got stuck into the Lionesses over the weekend and was full of praise for them on the Sunday. And then we had the whole Trump escapade, which was one of the most embarrassing outpourings, I think, from any Prime Minister I've ever seen, where he had to sit there and be humiliated by the 47th President of the United States of America. And it was so humiliating that he didn't put one tweet about his time with Donald Trump, which I still find extraordinary given what else he puts out. You know what I mean?
I mean, you touched on a very serious point there, and you touched on it, at the top of the programme. I mean, I was down in Epping last week, and as you've seen, there are very, very, very serious social tensions building up in this country now over a wide range of issues, but obviously most dangerously over this issue of the asylum seekers and housing of asylum seekers. And this is a very, very real danger. And obviously Nigel Farage spoke about it last week, was attacked for it, but then Angela Rayner herself stood up in cabinet and basically said, no, there are serious tensions brewing here, and we've got to get on top of it. But once again, what have the British people seen their Prime Minister doing? As you said, as these tensions are literally developing in front of our eyes, and these protests are developing in front of our eyes, what's his priority been? It's been to, as you say, first start talking about the crisis in Gaza. Then that rather bizarre, again, as you say, that sort of bizarre couple of days with Donald Trump, where, frankly, he appeared to simply be helping Donald Trump open a golf course.
Right. Well, it was like he was visiting Donald Trump.
It's like he was
in his country.
It was like he was visiting Donald Trump. Now we've got this again, this complete, just total catastrophe over the announcement of Palestinian recognition, which has pleased no one, and obviously generate this huge backlash. Most importantly, from the British families of hostages being held out there.
And this morning, like senior lawyers who are supposed to be
senior lawyers saying it's
probably illegal.
It's probably illegal. But the key thing is we've been talking about this for a lot. This idea about Keir Starmer's, just focus on international affairs, never hit Keir. I do think that is now becoming a very, very serious and legitimate criticism of it. Obviously, we understand there are all sorts of major international issues going on that the Prime Minister has to deal with. But he's Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He's not Secretary General of the United Nations.
No, exactly. And it's not his job to start ringing round, you know, to various different world leaders to see if they can all back him, which is what he appears to have been spending his last couple of days doing. I mean, he's just put out a tweet today, right? Because I try to keep an eye on, it's starting to dry up a bit. I only did one yesterday. Today's tweet is this, right? In the midst of all the things that you've just mentioned, we've been talking for about 10 minutes. He says this: too many small business owners spend hours chasing payments instead of doing what they do best, growing their businesses. It's unfair and it's holding Britain back. Our plan for change backs small businesses with the toughest crackdown on late payments in a generation. I mean, so what is all I would say to that. I run a small business and it's getting taxed up the wazoo, and a lot of people who employ other people, which I don't do much of, their business is costing them more money. That's what they're worried about. They're not worried about late payments that they need any help from the Prime Minister with.
But also yesterday we had a tweet from him in which he said there is a housing crisis in this country. Yeah. I'm going to have to get to grips with it. Now, you remember last time I was on, we were talking about the fact that he popped up in front of the liaison committee and said, "Oh no, actually, we haven't got a housing crisis. We've got loads of spare housing, and we're about to put lots of asylum seekers in it." And again, this is what I'm talking about. What is his strategy? It's you know, as we've said, the biggest single issue at the moment is facing the country are the growing tensions about the housing of asylum seekers and obviously the immigration issue. But what have we had? We've had one day Keir Starmer, "I'll help Donald Trump open his golf course." The next day it's, "I'll talk about housing." Then it's, in the midst of all this, "I'll talk about Gaza." And then now I'll talk about small businesses. Yeah. Oh, none of these things align. What's the? It's like he's frantically, desperately scrabbling around, trying to grab one issue here or one issue there, rather than actually sit down, focus on 2 or 3 priority issues, and actually demonstrate he's serious about them and he's serious about getting on top of them. But at the moment, it's just everything is panicked.
Yeah, and
everything
I mean,
is done in a form of panic.
Exactly, and I spoke to one of the mothers down at the Epping dispute protest last week, and I said to her, you know, if you've got a message for Keir Starmer, what is it? And she said, just come and see us. You know, come down, talk to us, understand why we're concerned about this and why we think that, you know, housing these migrants in a place that's a bit near a school where there's already been somebody arrested for a sex attack, you know, why we are not happy about it, and just try and understand how we feel. You know, both to a message to him and to Yvette Cooper, and this is what he doesn't seem to be any good at. He doesn't seem to understand how you get to feel how ordinary people feel.
You know, I remember you saying that last week, and I, as I said, I went down and I spoke to, you know, a number of the residents there and got exactly the same message.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we've had all this stuff about, you know, people on both the hard left and the hard right are trying to, you know, exploit these issues for their own political purposes and, you know, generating trouble and causing disorder. And that's absolutely right. There is obviously an element about that. But one of the problems is they're able to do that because a vacuum is being created by the mainstream politicians. So I was saying to people down there, have you seen or heard anything from the Prime Minister? Have you seen or heard anything from the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, who was warning the Cabinet about these issues? Yeah. Have you seen anything from any senior ministers? And the answer was no. I mean, in Epping, obviously you've had the protests outside the hotel. When I was down there, there were rumours going around. The men who were in the hotel have been moved out, been sent to Canary Wharf. The men haven't been moved out. I asked a local councillor down there, what information are you getting from the government? And they were saying the Home Office aren't telling us. Right. The Home Office are literally not even telling them how the hotel is being used.
Right.
Now, that's insane.
I know. Well, the Home Office apparently didn't even tell them when they were going to make it into a migrant hotel. They've now written, the local council have now written again to Yvette Cooper to say, we really think you should close this hotel down. But they were never given any information at all about the fact that it was even opening up for migrants.
No, exactly. And the point is that the people in Epping have been campaigning and basically pleading with the Home Office and the governments of both political persuasions, for over 5 years, because this has been going on for 5 years now. Yeah. Not to base people in that base asylum seekers in that hotel. Now, initially when they were put in, this is one of the problems. Initially when they were put in, it was a mixed group of asylum seekers and it was families. They were then moved out and the hotel was closed down, and people in Epping thought finally the situation's been resolved. Then again, without any consultation with them or even informing them, it was reopened, but this time it was exclusively young men who were put in there, which has led to all the issues that we've seen. And I was having this argument, I wrote about this on Sunday, and I had, the classic thing from people saying, oh, this is all being stoked up by the press. And I was saying, do people honestly think that, the people we're seeing in these pictures, that they are reacting solely to things that the people like me write, rather than actually what, to use that phrase, their lived experience is? They're reacting to what is actually happening in communities, and their concerns have to be addressed. They've got to be addressed, because as you've seen, the situation is not getting better. We had the Prime Minister, as I said, sort of breezily saying, oh, there's not a problem, we've got all this housing, don't worry, we're going to move them out of the hotels and put them into this housing. We're seeing time and time again across the country these demonstrations spreading, and something is going to have to be done about it, or at least people's concern, people in these communities have to get the impression that senior politicians like Keir Starmer are listening to their concern, not simply running around worrying about what the hell is happening in Gaza.
Exactly right. And he's going to have to make it this weekend, because there's going to be loads, from what I'm talking to people about, there's going to be loads more of these protests all weekend long, some on Friday, some on Saturday, probably some on Sunday as well. He's going to be forced into it, and like everything that he gets forced into, it'll be a knee-jerk reaction, it'll be the wrong reaction, he'll say the wrong thing, and he'll mess it up.
But again, yeah, exactly. The point is, it will be reactive. We all know that if there is, God forbid, if there's some sort of serious issue or some serious disorder, then Keir Starmer will appear at the podium, and he will he'll give a strong speech demanding law and order, backing the police and attacking those who are creating disorder. And rightly, there is no excuse for disorder, and people in these communities are, as again, speaking to them, they don't want disorder. They don't want these people coming down and hijacking this issue and beating up the police in their streets. Nobody wants this. But the Prime Minister again has to get out in front. What was the one time? I think I can recall one major speech from Keir Starmer on this issue, or broadly around this issue, on the issue of immigration, which is when obviously he famously stood up, gave the speech. A lot of people criticised him for his use of language, but remember, he famously said, we have to do something about this, because Britain is, for a lot of people, Britain is becoming an island of strangers. And then what happened? 5 weeks later, he turned round, did this emotional interview with his mate Tom Baldwin, and said, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have done it. I didn't even read the speech. I shouldn't have actually said that. That's the only intervention we've had from Keir Starmer on this issue.
Yeah, I know, and that was just an absolute disaster as well. Almost as if he didn't know it was going out to the actual public who were going to read it. Listen, good to talk to you, Dan. We keep this up. We're going to give you a show soon, I think, the way things are going.
I'll leave that to you. I'll leave that to the professionals.
See you later. Thanks very much indeed. Dan Hodges, commentator from the Mail on Sunday. Of course, the other thing to point out here is that Starmer says, and this is why Sadiq Khan has said it's the wrong idea to do. Starmer says that if he secures a ceasefire with Israel by September, then they won't recognise a Palestinian state. So people are saying, well, hang on, it's not really shouldn't ever be a condition of something, one, but two, if you're not then going to recognise Palestine, then why are you saying you will recognise them if there isn't a ceasefire? Because that doesn't mean you're actually recognising them at all, does it? Well, do you want to do it or not? He doesn't even know. Flip, flop, flip, flop. Toss a coin. Who knows? 9:25.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 9:27, with you until 10 o'clock, of course, another half an hour to go. It's looking pretty grim out there now. I think it's absolutely tipping it down rain-wise. You heard on the weather, it's going to be all the way from Bristol up to Ipswich, I think, or Suffolk or something like that. A big swathe of the south of the country. Very, very wet indeed. Stephen Barrett's here. We're going to talk to him in a moment. Voice note from Judith, first of all.
Good morning, Mike. It's Judy from Altoffs, West Yorkshire. I think Keir Starmer and all his Labour politicians are letting all this discomfort fester, so hoping that there'll be trouble, which it will be. They'll be caused more by the left than the right, and then he will bring in draconian laws, and then what we will have then is a communist country or a very, very left-leaning country, because these emergency laws will stay. And you won't be able to put anything on the internet, bad-mouthing the government or illegal immigrants or anything like that. You wait and see. Thank you.
Judith, I hope you're not right about that. You're going to keep that attack dog handy as well, just in case they come for you. But seriously, yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question that they will not react when the disorder becomes unrest and then becomes a proper demonstration and a proper riot. That's what people are talking about, because that's how they feel. Let's talk now, though, to Stephen Barrett, lawyer and writer, of course, because yesterday, finally, after a 4-week trial, Mohammed Fahir Amaz was painted, who had been painted as a victim of police brutality amid UK-wide protests after a bystander's phone clip of male cop kicking him in the head went viral, was finally found guilty of several counts of assault after hours of CCTV were studied in a courtroom. There's complications to the story, Stephen. Very good morning to you, because there's a retrial in certain aspects of it. But let's just talk about the guilty pleas or the guilty findings from yesterday.
Yes. So there are 3 guilty verdicts. Assault by battery, and then assault occasioning actual bodily harm, which is the most serious of those 3. And there is a maximum sentence, I think, of 5 years, and then there's a range which is sort of what you would expect, unless this is considered the most severe type of thing, which I suspect it isn't going to be. And that range is somewhere between no real custody and 4 years. And he's been remanded in custody, so that's a pretty good indication that he's probably going to go to prison for some time. But Mike, I think what will interest your listeners and viewers is the way that Lucy Connolly got 31 months for a tweet. And I think it's very unlikely that this gentleman will actually get 31 months for real violence. And I think we have to question what's gone wrong in our society when we've started to worry more about words than we have about things that actually happen. Words which might cause violence, which is all we could ever really lay at Lucy Connolly's door, although she deleted the tweet, and on any reading of it, it is ambiguous in my mind. But we are more afraid of words than we are of actual deeds. And that seems to be a real problem in our country. I don't know how we got to this place. Clearly, the people who do violence, to my mind, and I hope to the minds of your listeners and viewers, ought to be treated far worse than the people who simply type words.
Well, this is the thing we hear this week, don't we, from the Home Office, that they've put together this elite squad of police who are going to be monitoring what people say on social media about migrants. It's like, well, wouldn't it be better to monitor the actual migrants, you know, because they're the ones that might be occasionally committing crime. But that doesn't seem to be what they want to monitor. They want to monitor instead what people are saying about them.
Yes, and that's because we're morphing into this sort of Stasi state.
Yeah.
We're somehow, I mean, I hope entirely by accident, becoming a sort of version of East Germany. And I don't understand which of us voted for that. I didn't vote for that, Mike, and I don't know if anybody else voted for that. But I'm not entirely sure who wants to become this type of society, which is very brittle, by the way, Mike. It's a very unhappy society. No, there's no joy in it, and nobody has a good life in it, which is why they all fall. You know, the USSR fell for a reason. East Germany fell for a reason. It's because and there's a well-known saying about socialistic states that they end up building a fence to keep everyone in.
Right.
Because you don't want to live there. And I've got a young child. And we go to a local primary school, and we've had a lot of, as many towns have, a lot of Eastern European immigrants. And one of the great joys for me is talking to those parents who lived under communism, who absolutely loathe communism. They warn us. They tell us it's no joy. There is no fun in this. And that's what we're moving to. We're moving to a world that is terrified of words, terrified of a mum and a child minder.
And also, in this case, terrified of a reaction which might be considered to be racist, perhaps just because the protagonists in the story happen to be Asian men, you know. And it doesn't really, I mean, justice is meant to be blind, right? Isn't that the whole point? And yet, you know, there was a very much a sense during this trial that it was taking longer and it was being treated differently, and the assailants were being treated differently than you would have otherwise expected them to be if they'd been white, for example.
Well, the assailants were spoilt in this case because they had the Home Secretary publicly making statements in their defence, which I've never seen the Home Secretary do that for anyone else. And we had a number of MPs who jumped up and down immediately that this...
Yeah, Lucy Powell being one of them.
Yes, and I think they need to answer for that, and I think the Home Secretary probably needs to apologise for her actions, given that the man was actually guilty. Yeah. How on earth he got so much press coverage and positive press coverage, which is the real disgrace. But Mike, there's a takeaway from all of this, because do you remember with Axel Rudiker-Barner, the Prime Minister, I think, I'm going to say disingenuously, but that might be excessively cautious on my behalf, because I think it is now established that the Prime Minister regularly lies. But he said that there was a real danger of derailing the trial of Axel Rudiker-Barner. Yeah. And there clearly isn't a danger of derailing these trials if this one managed to go ahead, because the Home Secretary did her damnedest to derail it, and so did several MPs, and yet the trial went ahead. Yet the judge was robust enough, tough enough, managed to protect the jury from, I think he banned them from all social media during the trial, which seems to me an entirely sensible thing to do. Obviously, I didn't tweet anything because I'm incredibly sensible, but I did see tweets that asserted certain things. But as long as you can protect the jury from that, as long as you can keep the jury from being prejudiced, then there is no risk to the trial. And that's what we want. We want to live in a country, a fair country, where everybody gets a fair trial, where people are innocent until proven guilty. And we need robust judges who protect the jury. We don't need prime ministers threatening the entire population of a country and saying that they're all going to derail a trial, which is clearly not going to happen when you have competent judges, which is what we, thank goodness, still have.
Yes, indeed. We're going to speak to Richard Tice later on in this hour, who was demanding an apology yesterday from the prosecutor, I think Baroness Gohier, who had sort of been pretty, shall we say, damning of anyone who was critical of what had happened up at Manchester Airport. So we'll find out what he's got to say. But it also brings up this similar. She's also involved in the Islamophobia drawing up of rules for whether or not there's an Islamophobia law coming in, and he's very concerned that if that had come in and if it had existed at the time when he said the things that he said, he might well be being done for some kind of hate crime.
Well, do we want a blasphemy law that protects a gentleman who is guilty of violence, actual violence? I mean, again, I think we need to go back to being a country where we are afraid and we punish properly people who commit real violence. This gentleman committed real and serious violence. He is a man, and he I mean, to my mind, Mike, because you're old school like me, I mean, he hit a woman.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just... What? I've fortunately never hit anybody in my life, but the idea of hitting a woman is worse. That is morally and culpably worse.
Yeah.
And I think we need to go back to sentencing that reflects what we all actually think, because I think we ordinary people are the decent people, and the Sentencing Council has really lost its way. I mean, the one that I bang on about quite a lot, Mike, is the way that these paedophiles with paedophilic images, which are horrific, never seem to get to go to prison. And that is totally out of whack with what ordinary people think. If you go down the pub tonight, it's a Friday, so we can go down the pub on a Friday.
It's Thursday, actually, but I know what you mean.
Oh, well, it feels like a Friday. But we can go down the pub and talk to people, and they expect these people to go to prison.
Yeah.
And the fact that this man might get a lesser sentence than Lucy Connolly is absolutely shocking.
It is abhorrent. Totally abhorrent. But Stephen, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. We've got to run because it's nearly Friday. He's right, but it's not quite. It's Thursday. Coming up, we're going to talk to two comedians who have been banned, by the way, from the Edinburgh Fringe. Why? Because apparently the staff in the Edinburgh Fringe feel unsafe around them. Why? Because they're Jewish. I can't make this stuff up. It's 9:38.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:39. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. We're running out of time rapidly. It's not looking very nice out there in the rain, but we're about to reach the end of July. August is upon us. Who knows what's going to come through in the next few hours and days. But let's talk now to a couple of comedians, Philip Simon and Rachel Krieger, two stand-up comedians who've been axed from the Edinburgh Fringe because apparently bar staff feel unsafe around them. Why? Because they're Jewish. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
This is quite an extraordinary story, even for the Edinburgh Fringe, where I have been and performed, believe it or not, much to the chagrin of some of the people there. But when did you find out about this, first of all?
We found out a couple of weeks ago. We should be clear, we weren't axed from the whole Fringe, just two venues at the Fringe. One of the venues we both had a show in, separate shows, and then the second venue was just my show. But they are two venues that we have been in and performing in for the past few years, so have always been allies, have always been very friendly to us and very welcoming to us.
Right.
We found out about the first venue on July 18th, and then I found out about my second venue, putting my other show, which has no Jewish content whatsoever. That one was pulled on the following Friday.
Right. I mean, is there such a thing as Jewish content? I mean, if you're Jewish and you're making fun of something, you could be considered to be a Jewish comedian. But I mean, it's just comedy, isn't it? Does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could argue my first show that got cancelled, Jewarama, has more likelihood of being Jewish content, but it was.
Well, yeah, but it's still just comedy content, isn't it? I mean, it's you happen to be a Jew, you make fun of Jews, presumably. I mean, you know, what's the big deal?
It's not always about making fun of Jews. It's Jews using their culture and tradition as part of their comedic style.
Right.
My show was called Ultimate Jewish Mother. And again, it's not a political show in any way. It's like having a lovely, funny hug.
Yeah.
That's really all there was to it.
Well, there's a great history of Jewish comedy, isn't there? You know, when you think about it, going all the way back to some of the beginnings of the comedians in America. So how was it communicated to you?
We had a phone call from the CEO of the Free Fringe, which is the organisation we have been performing with for quite a few years, in the morning, saying that the owner of the venue had got in touch to say there was some concerns with the staff and to double check about what security arrangements we had in place. Because, as I'm sure you're aware, there's been a rise in anti-Semitism in the UK, and there are organisations that work to support different kinds of groups with just keeping a weather eye to make sure that everybody is safe and well. So we had support from such an organisation. It wasn't invasive. There wasn't anyone present in the venue. There wasn't anyone coming to check on things. It was helpline numbers if there was an issue, and police patrols that would have happened anyway in those streets, just coinciding with the timings of the beginning and ending of Jewish shows during the Fringe, and not just our shows, by the way. And he said, we had the same thing last year. He said the owner wanted reassurance that the same measures were in place. I was able to give him reassurance, and then he called back later in the afternoon and said that actually both shows had to leave that venue. They weren't willing to host our shows this year. They said that venue staff were intimidated by the idea and frightened by the idea that we were people who might need an extra secure eye. He complained that there was extra graffiti last year that no one had mentioned to us, that they felt was a concern. And they also suggested that we'd had some kind of a vigil for an IDF soldier in one of the shows, which didn't happen, and they did backtrack quite quickly with that particular claim.
Right. So is it a case of them trying to use the security angle as an excuse, really, where they're saying, oh, we might have a problem with the venue because people might turn up and start harassing you or something like that, rather than actually saying what they really think, which is that they don't want you there?
We just don't know. We can only go by our own past experiences, which is that having been in that venue for many years, Jewarama started off there. I think we were back there in 2019 as our first year. Yeah. And there have been no problems that we noticed. The same security measures, as Rachel said, were in place last year. I didn't even notice it was happening. One day I clocked somebody and went, oh, I forgot that was happening. So it's not in your face security. And they are a venue that does have a lot of security anyway. They're a fantastic central Edinburgh pub, a music venue. They're not without their own bouncers.
Right.
The concern about what might happen based against, for example, a rowdy Saturday night in an everyday pub is quite astonishing that we'd be considered more of a risk.
Yeah, right. So you're still going to the Fringe, but you're just not going to be doing those particular places?
We have options. So I'm still going, well, we're up here now anyway, but I'm doing a children's show, which I was already booked in to do, that I've been doing for a few years. It's called Schools Out Comedy Club, and that is still happening at 12:30 between the 1st and the 17th. We are doing lots of spots on other people's shows, which is what you do at the Fringe anyway. You spots in order to publicise your other shows. And we are both talking to other venues about the possibility of having our shows in some form. The support we've received has been phenomenal from comedians, from well-wishers. If ever we thought there was going to be indifference to what's happened to us from the comedy community, we have been absolutely proven wrong. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. And I'm part of a project here called the Glitter Project, run by Funny Women, which is supporting women and non-binary voices at the Fringe. And so that's a big part of why I've still come up despite all of these issues, I wouldn't have let that project down, and as well as the spots Philip mentioned, and hoping that my show will be reinstated in alternative provisions over the next few days.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. I mean, it's just insane, isn't it? Just mad. But anyway, thanks very much for talking to us. Philip Simon, Rachel Krieger, both available for hire and both available to see at the Edinburgh Fringe, and parts of it which have not gone completely barking mad. But it is appalling, isn't it? Absolutely appalling. Dreadful business. Coming up next, Richard Tice is going to join us. He's here from Reform, of course. He's got plenty to say about all sorts of things, but I imagine much of it about the Manchester Airport and the case against the man who's been found guilty of assault. This is Talk.
How realistic do you think a ceasefire is this week?
There's a very good chance that we'll have a settlement, an agreement of some kind.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.
What are you looking for here? An end. A real end.
Well, all of a sudden he's a big shot because he has the U.S. on his side. I am very disappointed with President Putin. He'll talk so beautifully and then he'll bomb people at night.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:48. I'm Mike Graham with you, of course, until 10 o'clock. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here as well very shortly. CG says this Prime Minister and government is too busy flying around the world, offering billions to other countries, billions to Ukraine, billions to rent an island we own, billions to import Afghans, millions to French to patrol beaches, millions in free accommodation, benefits to non-UK illegal arrivals, etc., etc. Meanwhile, sticking two fingers up to all the people in the UK they're supposed to be serving. Well, I think that pretty much sums up the mood of the nation and certainly the mood of the show this morning. So much money going south. Let's get a voice note from Sue.
Just really frustrated about the news again this morning. A lady left you a voice note. Sorry, I didn't get a name. But she asked the question, why? Well, that's exactly what I want to know. I want to know from this government, the last government, why are they drenching us, in fact, drowning us in immigration? Why are they letting illegal immigrants into this country and creating the problems? Most of the problems that we have today, probably all of the problems that are broken in Britain, the root cause will always come back to immigration, especially illegal immigration. And I want to know why, Starmer, why are you doing this to us?
Yeah, it's a good question. Why is he doing it? Let's talk to Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, MP, of course, as well, for Skegness. Richard, very good morning to you.
Well, a very good morning to you. And well, you've been talking this morning about the conviction yesterday of Mohammed Amaz, one of the two people involved in the Manchester Airport assault on numerous police officers. Yeah. And I've been completely vindicated because I came out early doors and said something bad has gone on here, having seen the two tasers. And But it's interesting, isn't it? Those who criticised me at the time, including a peer of the realm, one Baroness Gohier, who accused the police on the 25th of July 2024 of police brutality.
Yeah.
And accused me of supporting that brutality and accused me of fueling racism and Islamophobia. I've asked for an apology from her, and far from getting an apology, she's doubled down and says that I'm providing misleading statements. Well, I've been completely vindicated. And this woman she's a non-exec director of the Law Commission. And believe it or not, she's on the working group for the definition of Islamophobia. So this government can bring in a blasphemy law. And if that had been in place this time last year, guess what? I would have been prosecuted for defending the police. I could have been convicted. I could have lost my job as an MP, Mike.
I know, it's shocking, isn't it? But it's the same methodology, isn't it, for the Home Office to now say, oh, we're going to start monitoring people's social media in case they say anything nasty about migrants. Well, you know, I think you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that the country's pretty fed up with illegal migration in this country, and everywhere you look now, there's a protest. Last night in Waterlooville was a new one where they want to house about 45 illegal migrants into some rather plush £250,000 a time flats. Where lots of people in Waterlooville say, well, why are you giving them to them? Why are we not being given the opportunity to live there? You know, the same thing's happening in Diss, the same thing's happening in Canary Wharf, the same thing's happening in Altrincham, you know, in Norfolk, in Norwich as well, all over the country. And this is going to happen time and time again until Starmer does something about it.
Well, he'd better do something and his cabinet very quickly. Can I suggest that they call a second emergency cabinet meeting this week and focus on what the British people, as you rightly have been just saying there, which the British people are concerned about, which is the frankly dangerous illegal invasion by young undocumented males who, regrettably, we are increasingly seeing are involved in a dramatically disproportionate quantity of sexual offences. And you've got lots of lawful, peaceful protests by concerned mums, concerned for their daughters, their children, quite understandably. And this is a reflection of the utter fury at the state of the country, the state of illegal immigration, the state of two-tier justice. And this will not end well unless the government shows that it understands the concern of the British people and it's actually going to focus on this.
Yeah.
And not focus on things like the Chagos Islands and wasting time on daft statements on Gaza that's enraged our main strategic ally, the United States.
Yeah, exactly right. And he has said nothing, Keir Starmer, since before last weekend when it all started kicking off in Epping. He's made no attempt to address the people of Epping. He's made no attempt to address the people of Britain. This morning, I kid you not, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, he's put one tweet out which is all about small business. He's saying that our plan for change backs small businesses with the toughest crackdown on late payments in a generation. I mean, you couldn't make it up. It's like he's living in some kind of cloud cuckoo land.
Well, he's clearly not living in reality because he's just so utterly out of touch with the genuine concerns of decent, hard-working, tax-paying folk. Folk who've got an alarm clock and get up in the morning to go to work and who have to pay for the vast billions and billions of pounds of benefits and accommodation and food and heating and cleaning and driving lessons and circus tickets that all of these illegal migrants are now receiving. Yeah. And I don't know where this goes from here, but I would suggest to the Prime Minister and the Cabinet they better pull their finger out and have an emergency meeting and convince the British people that they've got a plan. And the only plan that's going to work is to pick up and take these migrants on the boats back to France, which we're entitled to do under international treaty law. Instead, you've now got the RNLI helping bring them over to Dover. I mean, the whole thing is complete chaos, and it's getting worse, not better. The numbers coming this year are about 50% higher than the numbers last year. So smashing the gangs has failed. We all know that. So when is he going to try something else?
Well, 900 people arrived yesterday in one day alone. You know, and so you can only imagine how many more are going to come in August. It's 25,538 now for this year. Since Keir Starmer's been in, 47,780. So it's not far off 50,000 since Labour got in last July.
I mean, it's truly mind-boggling. Every boat of 70 people is, give or take, an extra £30 million liability on UK taxpayers in the subsequent 12 months. Every single dinghy of about 70 people. Those are the rough numbers. And it's this is a national emergency at every level. Yeah. It's a cultural emergency. It's a societal emergency. It's a law and order emergency, and it's a financial emergency. And this government is just totally and utterly out of touch. It beggars belief. Mm.
It really does. And I've had a series of conversations with different political leaders. Yes, a couple of days ago I had Kemi Badenoch in here, had Priti Patel on the other day. Both of them said, quite categorically, that Keir Starmer's a liar.
We actually had a video of how many times he had told lies at the dispatch box.
So it sounds like you do believe that he's a liar, though.
Yeah,
he is. So that's it. The Prime Minister's a liar. Incredible.
And the reality is, as your videos have proven, he is. And he is the captain of the U-turn. So what's he going to U-turn on next? But it's a very bad state of affairs where a Prime Minister is a proven liar on multiple occasions, having been elected Prime Minister by essentially accusing Boris Johnson consistently of being a liar. So we're in a pretty bad place where both main parties have elected Prime Ministers who essentially have been proven in office to be liars. Yeah. And it's what's leading, I think, to a complete collapse in confidence in the two main parties. Yeah. And it's one of the reasons why we at Reform are leading in every national poll by somewhere between 7 and 9 or 10%. Mm.
I know, it's quite shocking, absolutely unbelievable. Richard, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Richard Tice, MP, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, of course, as well. Julie Hartley-Brewer is here, coming up to 10 o'clock. Very good morning.
Good morning, yeah.
It's not looking very nice out there.
No, it's a bit miserable out there. Summer. There's climate change. I don't know. Who knows what it is this week?
Somebody's fault.
Difficult to keep up, isn't it? A lot to talk about.
Loads.
I mean, obviously, it's Palestine still. Yeah. But again, a lot of us still wondering why is the Prime Minister spending his time on stuff what could be in breach of international law, utterly pointless, no influence whatsoever, and not having emergency cabinet meetings about dealing with the stuff here at home.
Today he's tweeting about, make late payments if you're a small business.
No, that is an important issue. It is a very important issue.
But he's never going to help me running a small business. He's the Prime Minister. He's never run a business in his life.
No, he doesn't understand it. No, there is that.
He's never had to wait for a late
Although some of the Tories talked about doing, didn't actually get around to doing. But we've got this record population growth. We've got more small dinghies. We've got to talk about, obviously,
people.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just, a normal summer's day now, isn't it? And we're just going to carry on. And, housing crisis, when they're going to put people into flats in Portsmouth,